Mic check 1 2 3 4. Mic check 1 2 3 4. Mic check 1 2 3 4. Stand by. Yeah, I'm here at Dewey Street in Tennessee. That's right there, the McDonald's across from FSU's campus here. And you can still see it's very active here. You have State Highway Patrol kind of manning the intersection right here. The Tallahassee Fire Department is here as well. We've also been seeing some students walking away from campus right now. Everyone I talked to say they're okay. They're a little shaken up right now, and they heard the SWAT come in and felt safe enough to leave, so they're getting away from campus. Police are kind of making sure that they're okay as well as they're leaving campus. But FSU is still advising people on campus to shelter in place until they give the all clear, which has not happened yet. I did talk to a student at Tallahassee State Community College. Her roommate goes to FSU, and her roommate is in her classroom right now, and she says that she feels safe. They don't know what's going on, but again, that's the question that a lot of people are asking right now, just trying to figure out what exactly happened here on campus that demanded such a large police presence. And like I said, we've seen ambulances, lights, and sirens heading towards the hospital here. So we do know that there are victims. We just don't know the total victims yet, or if the shooter's one of them, or any of that right now. So we're working on getting those answers for you, and we'll have them as soon as we can. Back to you. I get some static. I'll go get an XLR. Check 1 2 3 4. Check 1 2 3. Yeah. I'll just hardwire it that way. There's no question. I'll turn this off.
Tallahassee State College, all right there in Tallahassee. This is a look at what appears to be Tennessee Street, very active, connecting those schools. You see law enforcement, you see police, you see this vehicle here on your screen. We've seen the fire department as well.
That's right. Fire department there. That's been going on here for the past 45 minutes or so. In fact, FSU sent out an alert saying an active shooter has been reported in the area of the student union. Police are on the scene or on the way. Continue to seek shelter and await further instructions. Lock and stay away from all the doors and windows and be prepared to take additional protective measures. Now, we also understand, according to CNN, that the shooter has been taken into custody. No word on any types of conditions of people right now. The 4 people who were taken to the hospital, according to our sister station in Tallahassee, or the shooter, him or herself. Once again, it happened around the Student Union building, which is kind of the heart of the campus there of FSU. And people are still in that area, of course. Law enforcement still in that area. And we're also trying to get a good count of exactly how many people have been injured, including the 4 who were taken to the hospital.
Absolutely. And for those who are at home watching, we are still in the early stages of this. You know, you have the active shooter situation where you have a campus, an active campus. Is a Thursday afternoon, no telling how many people are out and about. We are just in the very early stages of this breaking news. So as we get that information in, we are letting you know right now the number is 4. We're hearing from the hospital, getting that confirmation, but just still a lot of unanswered questions at this point.
Of course, the Easter holiday coming up here, and many students may have been starting to get off campus, but those who were still on campus, possibly classes today, and of course people in the student union building as well. You could hear the sirens earlier of law enforcement and emergency personnel arriving on the scene. Once again, this is Tennessee Street, and not too far away from the student union building, just probably about a half block away when I take a look at Google Maps. But the shooter right now, it says active, but we understand he or she may have already been taken into custody. Now, you may remember back in 2014, it was about 10 and a half years ago, there was a shooter too on the Strozier Library area inside there. He shot 3 people in that area, and when he came back out, police ended up shooting and killing him. We have no idea about the shooter now who's in that area. Hopefully he has been or she has been taken into custody, or exactly how many people have been injured other than those 4 people taken to the hospital.
Yeah, and right now we do know that maybe if you have any students on campus, maybe any children there, that of course everyone is being asked to stay wherever they are on campus right now. Of course, seeking shelter, not being by any windows, you know, the active shooter training that kicks in. FSU right now has confirmed, of course, all classes and events for today have been canceled. FAMU also putting out an alert that students there are safe, but of course asking everybody to stay in place and stay away from the campus at this time. As you can see, very active scene here. We see EMS on the scene. We see police on the scene. This street right here appears to be closed down to open traffic, as we see a lot of law enforcement. So anybody who you know who may be in Tallahassee or in the area right now, this is still just so early in the investigation. You want them to stay exactly where they are. But again, confirming here at least 4 people involved in this shooting. That alert originally sent out about 12 o'clock. So we're hitting about, a little over an hour right now since we initially got this information into the newsroom.
About an hour now. No, there was a tweet that went out by Garrett Harvey. Garrett Harvey's an FSU meteorology student. He was on campus, posted a video on X showing students running across the street, possibly Tennessee Street, trying to get away from that school. We took a look at that earlier. We could try to turn that around and show that to you. That's on several legitimate websites today, CNN as well as CBS. So once again, here's another shot of that area this afternoon around FSU there. The outlining areas around Tennessee Street, the Student Union building is where that shooting happened, we were told, and those 4 people once again taken to the hospital. So we're trying to get more information from you for you this morning or this afternoon in terms of exactly some of the details of what's going on. We have not heard about any type of news conference yet from law enforcement officials or from police there to give us a little bit more information about what's happening. But we haven't received yet about FSU's numbers that maybe people can call, because there's a lot of kids, of course, in our area that go and parents whose children go to FSU. Yep. So I'm sure they're going to be having some type of possibly hotline number that people can call just to make sure that everything is safe.
Yeah, we do have a tweet in from St. Augustine Beach Mayor. He said, praying for my kids, my friends' kids at FSU, active shooter, be safe. So of course we will start to see more of this as people figure out exactly what is going on there on campus. We do have crews again on the way to Tallahassee to get on the ground, maybe talk to Tallahassee Police Department, Leon County Sheriff's Office, talk to the fire department, and really get more details, as we are really early on in this investigation as they close down the campus and any streets near the campus. As Phil said, CNN is reporting that the shooter may have already been taken down or arrested. So of course, as soon as we can confirm that information, we will get that to you.
Once again, we do have a crew going to Tallahassee. In fact, Jake Stofan is headed there right now. He joins us live to give us an update on what he has heard so far. Jake? But he is heading out there along with a photographer, left just a little while ago to get the very latest on what's happening there in Tallahassee. But once again, that active shooter, hopefully not active right now, but either he's been taken down or possibly somehow taken care of at this hour, because it's been about an hour now since the university posted on X that this was happening in the area there in Tallahassee. A number of law enforcement showing up there, as you can see there. Of course, it's a major college here in the state of Florida. They pretty much pulled out all the stops to get all law enforcement in that area as soon as possible to take care of the situation, to try to get as many students safe as they can.
Absolutely. And I do want to read this statement. This is from our sister station. This is from Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare, which is one of the larger hospitals there in the Tallahassee area. They say right now they are actively receiving and caring for patients related to an incident that happened at FSU. At this time, details, of course, still unfolding. They said they have not yet had any specific information to share, but they want to assure the community that they are working to their highest abilities to support all those that are affected. They say we remain in close coordination with emergency responders and public safety officials. And this is again from Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare. They say out of respect for patient privacy and to assure accurate information that they will provide updates as soon as they can. So right now they are just asking for patience and compassion, of course, during this very difficult time, difficult for everyone in the area, difficult for those students, difficult for just the state of Florida, especially people whose, their kids go there, family members go there. Just a really heartbreaking situation. We
also understand that FBI here in Jacksonville is on the scene right now, helping local law enforcement in that area around Florida State University. Now, police responded to the scene at 12:20. And as of 12:39, those in that area were being told to continue to shelter in place. It's now 1:12. We have not received any word that that is going to be any different. You see some kids there walking across the street right now, possibly some students. It seems to be relatively normal there without any much urgency walking across. So hopefully that situation is under control. We have not heard yet. An emergency notification system for FSU at this time did not indicate whether a suspect had been apprehended, but according to some other reports, we did receive that information because law enforcement sources told CNN that a suspect was in custody at the time.
And we do have a tweet here in from Senator Rick Scott. He says he's praying for the safety of everyone at FSU and a swift recovery for those who are injured. My team has been in touch with local law enforcement and continues to monitor the situation. He says students should continue to follow directions from school officials. And as we know, those instructions have been to stay in place, of course, stay away from windows as this situation is handled.
All right. We also understand CNN saying that a suspect was in custody. Forrest Saunders, a reporter for Scripps, said he witnessed one person being led away by law enforcement in shackles. So that's the latest news coming from CNN.
And anyone who is watching who needs any information, whether you know anyone in Tallahassee, any students, your children, we just got an alert here that says anyone in need of immediate emergency assistance should, of course, call 911 or FSU PD, that number 850-644-1234. And they also have a website where they are releasing any updates and information, and that's going to be alerts.fsu.edu. Again, that's going to be alerts.fsu.edu as we all continue to get information as it comes in.
All right, Action News Jack's Jake Stofan headed to Tallahassee. As we said, we understand we have him on the phone right now. Jake, what do you know right now?
know just about what you all know at this point. I have not been able to hear back from Tallahassee Police Department or from the university itself, although I have submitted some inquiries just letting them know that we're heading out there. We should be arriving at FSU at about 3:15, maybe a little bit after that, depending on the traffic. I will say I'm having some technical issues where I'm hearing myself in my ear here with an echo. If we could maybe try to.
All right, Jake, sorry about that, but we understand. Obviously, you are a Capitol reporter, a political reporter. You spent a lot of time in Tallahassee and possibly around that campus. Can you set the scene for us in that area and tell us, how large that campus is and the streets surrounding it, especially around the Student Union building?
Well, yeah, the main FSU campus is pretty much just down the street from the state capitol. And as you know, session is going on right now. So this is happening just a couple of miles away from where state lawmakers are currently meeting to pass the policy of the state. FSU, fairly large campus. I used to run around it all the time, doing a full loop. It was about 4.5 kilometers, 5 kilometers. So, you know, it's a very large area, a very beautiful campus with a lot of big open spaces and greens. You know, and this is not the first time that there's been a shooting situation at FSU. I'm not sure if we've already talked about this, but back in 2014, there was an active shooter situation where 3 people were injured, and one of those students was paralyzed. So it's really tragic to see that this campus appears to be going through this once again. A lot of horrific images coming out of the university right now. People carrying what would be limp bodies, people being taken in ambulances, students being escorted out by police with up, and more. And as I'm able to get back to some officials on the ground to get some additional insight, I will be sure to update you. If you want to follow me on Twitter right now or on X, I'm posting updates as I see them. The governor just weighed in saying, quote, "Our prayers are with our FSU family and state law enforcement response." So FDL
seem to be having a little bit of technical difficulties there, but we appreciate your work and you getting on the ground in Tallahassee. In the meantime, we do have some new video and sound from a student who is actually on Florida State University's campus. Let's go to that.
Nervous, I'm scared for my friends, I'm making sure I'm checking up on them, and I just hope everyone's okay and this gets handled soon. I was parking my car, walking back, and as I was walking back, I see these group of girls crying, really upset, walking back from the student union, told me they heard gunshots, and they just ran and came back to their apartment where I was walking to.
There you go, that student there commenting on what was going on there in Tallahassee just within the last hour. Other video now circulating online, possibly showing the shooter possibly on a stretcher, shackled to that stretcher, but still trying to confirm those reports right now. The FSU alert system is telling all students to continue to shelter in place. Law enforcement still clearing rooms on the main campus right now. Law enforcement officers will use the safe word seminal to confirm that it's safe to open up the door. So very important that the safe word is seminal to confirm it's safe to open up the door. They're telling people to continue to shelter in place until law enforcement contacts you. Now, we told you about that phone number that possibly would come out. Looks like it has right now. People in need of immediate emergency assistance should call 911, obviously, or the Florida State University Police Department, or that number right there that you see, 850-644-1234. So that would be the number that I would think any parent could call if they are concerned about their friends or possibly relatives at FSU right now.
Yeah, heartbreaking there hearing from that student. I mean, you think about such a large campus there,
Right.
and you're on one part and you see people running, you don't really know what's going on. You may not hear the gunshots, you may be in another part of campus. So just hearing her perspective from Florida State's campus in Tallahassee, which also lines up to some information on our from our sister station that says that students there, witnesses there, heard about 15 to 20 gunshots.
Right.
Yeah, the students say they've left the scene there and just everyone went to take shelter.
And a number of people who apparently were down too, and some that were being carried away by police officers and ambulance personnel, some on stretchers, some carried away to an ambulance. Once again, that area, that Tennessee Street area, cordoned off right now. If we could see more footage in that area, looks like it's all blocked off right now with no cars at all in that surrounding area of Tallahassee. So we're continuing to follow this story, trying to get more information for you. Also some more phoners from that area and more live information about how many people were taken to the hospital other than those 4 that apparently have been confirmed, and how many people possibly injured from the shooting that happened about an hour and 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, and of course, Jake is on the way, so he's expected to, of course, talk to the Tallahassee Police Department. At some point, there will be some type of briefing where we can get some actual information, you know, were these students, were this faculty, staff, were they just people on campus? But going back to the shooting that happened in 2014, after that shooting that happened in the library, so many changes to colleges' campuses after that. I mean,
Sure.
to go to the library, you had to start going through metal detectors, walking through. So when these situations happen, of course, we're in the earliest stages of this investigation. Many changes happen to campuses. We've already seen many campuses have gates around them. You have to go through giving your identification before you go on campus, but truly, truly a heartbreaking day for Tallahassee students. And of course, I keep mentioning because this is a college town. 3 campuses there, we're college-age students, thousands there, and just a heartbreaking day for everyone involved.
Yeah, it certainly is. We get you more information. We told you Jacksonville's FBI crew already at the scene right now. They're responding there as at FSU as the campus and the city, as well as state officials pretty much convened at that school, taking a look at what's going on. And the staff at Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare is, as you said, Shay, receiving care, for caring for patients of the patients that have gone there, not too far away from FSU's campus. They said that in a statement this afternoon. So we're continuing to take a look at that scene. If we could take another shot right now, I'm seeing some officers. They're just trying to wave some people into that area. We have a reporter in and out of this shot, but they're trying to wave cars through that area. But it looks like for the majority of that Tennessee Street area, it's pretty much blocked off. And we see the line of police there still on the scene with their lights on.
Yeah, and I do want to give that number we mentioned earlier. Of course, if anyone needs emergency assistance in that area or anyone that you know in that area, FSU says to call 911, of course, or the university's police department. That number 850-644-1234. This is a live look on the ground in Tallahassee right now. You can see law enforcement lining the street there. We have seen everyone from the Tallahassee Police Department, Leon County Sheriff's Office out there. We, of course, know now that FBI from here in Jacksonville are also headed to Tallahassee. This is really a time where everyone comes together. This looks to be like Tennessee Street, and it appears to be completely blocked off to the public. We see that car, law enforcement escorting that car through the street there. So definitely a time where FSU has reminded students and everyone in the area to stay where you are right now.
If you're just tuning in, we're interrupting, I know your soap opera right now, but
Yes.
we're following this active shooter situation at Florida State University. Here's what we know so far: at least 4 hospitalized. The hospital is still actively also receiving patients right now. All classes have been canceled. Students were told to stay away. Some reports indicate that the shooter has been arrested. That is still trying to be confirmed at this hour. Also, a number of people taken by ambulance, other than possibly those 4, to the hospital, or possibly were affected or injured by the shooter. And we understand, as you were saying, between 20 and 30 shots fired in and around the Student Union building at about 12:20 this afternoon.
And if you're just joining us, we do have a statement here from Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare, which is a major hospital in Tallahassee that has taken in these 4 people involved. They tell us that they are actively receiving and caring for these patients related to this incident that happened at FSU's campus. Right now, they say out of respect for patient privacy, though we all want as much information as we can get, they do want to ensure accurate information, so they will be providing updates as soon as they are available. They are asking for patience and compassion during this difficult time, which it certainly is a very difficult time.
Yeah, once again, hundreds of students were seen fleeing that area in social media videos that we're seeing. Hopefully we'll be able to turn that around as quick as possible and show you the video here on Action News Jax. Many students, as we heard from that one girl who we heard just a few minutes ago, were visibly shaken by what was going on, and they were pretty much glued to their phones as they tried to understand what was happening. A lot of people on social media right now will try to get some legitimate tweets out there to tell you exactly what's happening. But once again, those 4 people, at least 4 people taken to the hospital. And
while we do have that sound from that student, if you're just joining us, I do want us to play that again because she's on the ground. She's on campus. This is a student. She's there every day and now witnessing this. So if we can go to that sound.
Nervous, I'm scared for my friends. I'm making sure I'm checking up on them, and I just hope everyone's okay and this gets handled soon. I was parking my car, walking back, and as I was walking back, I see these group of girls crying, really upset, walking back from the student union, told me they heard gunshots, and they just ran and came back to their apartment where I was walking to.
All right, we understand 2 FSU students evacuated so fast too in parts of that campus. They left their lunch, their cell phones, everything just sitting there because they probably heard those shots fired. They didn't have to be told to leave, right? They just took off, and now now that campus just littered with what they left behind. Also, we understand some shoes, unfortunately, were left behind because people reacted so quickly to get out of there.
Yeah, and you know, nowadays you have active shooter training, so I'm sure a part of their orientation was if you hear gunshots, if there is an active shooter, this is what we do. Unfortunately, nowadays everywhere you go, that is kind of a part of your training before you get there. Just in case of a situation like this, you know what to do.
School is still telling people to stay indoors right now, stay in class if they're in class right now, and not to open up any doors until you hear that safe word Seminole, we understand. Also, we have that one number that you can go ahead and call, 850-644-1234. For hopefully some additional information if you can get through right now. We should have someone in the back in the newsroom call that number to see if they have any additional information.
And I do want to read this information. This was just into our newsroom. Action News Jax has been told that buildings on FSU's campus are being evacuated with police at gunpoint because they are taking serious reports that there might be more than one shooter. This is information just into our newsroom less than 5 minutes ago. They say at this point, it is not certain if in fact there is more than one shooter. And during these types of situations, we know that often is a lot of misinformation, which what we've seen on social media as well. So they are still waiting to officially hear this from police, but multiple agencies are staging just off campus, as we've seen in those live looks. And as we're seeing right now, it appears to be students here standing outside of that scene. We see that yellow police crime scene tape going across that street there.
Yeah, we also understand that FBI agents and law enforcement going door to door in campus right now with their guns drawn, trying to evacuate that entire area. So, which makes sense, right? If there's multiple shooters that are going around campus right now, if there's anyone there that's not supposed to be there, that may be an at-risk type of person or a person who possibly could be part of this. The one shooter that apparently was taken into custody, and the other possibly shooter that's there, they're trying to find that person to take him or her into custody as soon as possible.
And we do want to let you know, we just got this information into our newsroom from our sister station. Sources have confirmed 5 people dead, 4 injured, 2 shooters, 1 is in custody, 1 of them dead.
Okay, so that's the very latest. Once again, our sister station reporting that out of the barrage of shots, we heard between 20 and 30 shots. 5 people have died, 4 have been injured. Those were the 4 that were taken to the hospital. 2 shooters in total, once again, 1 in custody. That possibly was that person who was shackled to that gurney and put into an ambulance, but 1 other person dead, 1 of the other shooters dead right now. But they're still searching the campus as we speak to go ahead and make sure all the students are safe, and they're doing that by gunpoint right now, searching from class to class.
Heartbreaking. I just want to take a minute to really take this in. I mean, we brought this information to you as breaking news in our noon newscast. At that time, we didn't have any information. We only knew of an active shooter situation, and for it to, in 1.5 hours, for us to find out 5 people dead on a college campus. We don't know if these are someone's children, if these are faculty members. Just heartbreaking information. But we do know 5 people dead, 4 injured, 2 shooters, and 1 of those shooters is in custody, and 1 of those shooters are dead.
You know, obviously so many people go on social media right now trying to find, you know, the very latest information, exactly what's happening. We have the correct information for you right now. The 5 people dead, the 4 injured, the 2 shooters, 1 in custody, 1 dead. We want to tell viewers and warn viewers to be careful when you're on social media. You might find other information that may not be correct. This is the correct information right now, and we're trying to keep on top of it too with additional information for you as well.
And that's our role here. That is why you watch us. You come to the news to get the accurate information, because on social media, I mean, we saw video that was from past shootings that wasn't even in Tallahassee. We saw a picture going around of just information that wasn't accurate. So we are working very hard here, making phone calls. We have a crew on the way to Tallahassee, getting official information of what is actually going on and information that has been verified by law enforcement.
Now, last time anything like this happened was more than 10 years ago. We were mentioning on the Strozier library area where there was a shooter that went in and had multiple shots inside the library at that time. This apparently happened in and around the Student Union building today, but 10.5 years ago it happened inside the Strozier library. One man, he started shooting up, he was a graduate student, he started shooting up the inside of the library. 3 people were hit at that time and injured, and then after he came outside the library, he was shot dead by police. Looks like one of the police officers shot the one person who was one of the 2 shooters, killing him. The other person may or may not have been injured, possibly injured, but looks like he was the one that was taken into custody in that ambulance earlier this morning.
And I do want to go back to this information we got that FSU's campus is still being actively evacuated right now. Police with guns drawn, because they are taking serious reports that, of course, there may be more than 1 shooter. And as we know now, 1 shooter is dead and another one has been arrested. They say right now they are still handling a lot of misinformation. We're still waiting to get more information from police, but multiple agencies are on the scene, and we do know that FBI from here in Jacksonville are already on their way to Tallahassee to help. All hands on deck.
We understand some new video this morning of law enforcement responding to the scene. Let's take a look at that, where there were numerous law enforcement vehicles there, ambulances, police officers, FBI agents, all responding to Florida State University when this shooting occurred shortly after noon today with those two shooters. No idea of a motive yet so far, what these two shooters were thinking or doing, but it happened in and around the Student Union building. Once again, some footage of all those police officers responding. And there were hundreds of police officers that went out to FSU right now, and hundreds of students, if not thousands, evacuating from that campus when they heard those shots go off. Law enforcement.
I was just going to say, we want to get to some new video we just got in of, you can actually see the students running away.
There we go.
Yes, this is during that active shooter situation. I'm trying to see here. I see a lot of cars moving. I see the camera zooming in here, and you do see people running across a street here. Not sure exactly what street this is, or if this is near the Student Union, where we know where the shooting initially started. But this is new video, fresh into the newsroom, just to give you some perspective here of what students and people on campus experienced.
That was a FSU meteorology student named Garrett Harvey who took this video right now, looks like from overpass shooting down. He was obviously on the campus at the time. He posted this video on X showing those students just frantically running across the street to get away from that school or that area. That was posted at about 12:03, so roughly about an hour and a half ago when that was posted. So once again, this shooting happened around noon. You could tell, I mean, people, possibly parents there.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. When you have this type of situation, you don't know if it's your child, your friend, your family member.
Right.
You just want to get out there, which is what we see all the time, and of course what we're seeing now as they ask people to stay away from the campus. When you don't know, a lot of people going there on their phones, right, calling, texting, making sure that whoever they know is safe and okay.
And of course, Jacksonville parents, 2.5 hours away. Maybe you can't get through on the phone to your loved one, right, or a friend who's there. Right. We do have a number. It I'm sure may or may not be busy, but okay, I'm sure it's very popular right now at 850-644-1234. That's 850-644-1234 for any additional information. Also, this is for emergency assistance, yep, too. So. Our broadcast doesn't go into Tallahassee, but if people are looking online and possibly want to call that number for emergency assistance, they could go ahead and do that right now. Once again, police are continuing to evacuate buildings at FSU in Tallahassee. They're forcing those students out at gunpoint because I'm sure more than a few students heard the gunshots, and maybe instead of running off campus like we saw earlier, maybe they were thinking, I'm going to shelter in place. They're going to go to one of the classrooms instead, and then maybe wait or hide out there and lock the doors. So in order to get those students out, the police officers, SWAT teams are going there class by class in order to get those students out. And there's that safe word that they're yelling out to these students so the students know that it's safe to come out. So they have that safe word that they're telling students right now.
And if you're just joining us, I do just want to give this information again from our sister station. We have learned 5 people are dead from this shooting at Florida State University in Tallahassee, Florida. We know that 4 people were injured. They're being cared for at Tallahassee Memorial Hospital. We know right now 2 shooters, 1 in custody and 1 dead. And we do have new information right now. Yeah.
All right. Tanika Hughes will be joining us here in just, but you have some new information too, Tanika, on what law enforcement's saying right now?
You're just kind of reiterating some of the things that you guys were hitting. And first of all, I want to start by saying I was actually out walking my dog and I saw the tweets about a shooting, another shooting at FSU's campus. I think I had been in Jacksonville maybe 3 months.
That's right,
in 2014 when that shooting happened on the campus library. My heart just sank. We just had the shooting at the school in Texas. And so we see these things and we hear about them, but they're not commonplace. They're commonplace occurrences, but emotionally, the way that you feel, and my heart just goes out to everyone in our community, in our extended community. I know even you being a FAMU graduate, knowing that close-knit community that's there, this is very, very difficult. But I want to touch on what you guys were saying. Law enforcement still on that campus. We have confirmed 2 shooters, possibly 1 dead, 1 in custody. We talked about someone being shackled to a gurney. I was listening to your excellent coverage earlier. They are sweeping this campus and they're being very methodical in these situations. They have to try to assure the safety of everyone that's remaining. We have faculty, we have staff, thousands of students. And you all know this is a college town, a lot of activities. So to see that Tennessee Street,
very busy,
busy and blocked from typical traffic.
Right, it's barren now.
That just gives you an idea of the massive undertaking that's happening right now. But the biggest thing is sweeping that campus and getting everyone to safety. We know that police are moving through at gunpoint. That is a standard procedure. Right. I was in a situation before where I was in the building where a gunman was in the building, and that is what they do. Really? They sweep the buildings with guns, and that is for the safety of everyone involved. And I know you mentioned they're giving people a safe word. We know that they also have the FSU alert system. That is how we first learned about that shooting. So students and hopefully their parents are able to get information that way. So many agencies swarming that area to coordinate getting the students to safety, getting the faculty to safety, and just making sure that there are no existing threats on campus. When you guys gave the update as I was coming into the building, 5 dead, 4 hospitalized. I know the hospital, the doctors and nurses being very careful of the information that they're releasing on the conditions of the people who are being treated. It's very important for us to make sure that we're getting you accurate information. We're trying to report as much as we know, but so much is swirling around, especially with social media, so we want to get this right for you. But again, police evacuating buildings, they're forcing those students out because of those reports, again, of the 2 shooters. Loved ones are being told to go to the Donald L. Tucker Civic Center if they want to reunite with their loved ones. And we know that there's also a hotline that you all have been giving out for people who may need more information. It's only, what, a 2.5-hour drive from here. There's so many FSU alum and family who have students there. I've seen parents, I've seen folks, I think the mayor over in Jacksonville Beach, people just tweeting their friends, their kids' friends go to this school. It's such a large campus with such a reach. And even those other colleges in that community, everyone feels really united there in that college town. So anyone who may be taking that trip to Tallahassee, you're asked to go to the Donald L. Tucker Civic Center, and that is where you'll be able to reunite with loved ones and also keep that hotline handy. I don't know if you guys have that number to give out again.
We do. It's 850-644-1234.
Yeah, and speaking of parents, we do have some fresh sound just into our newsroom of a dad who is in Tallahassee, Florida right now. Let's get to that.
My daughter was waiting at the table. We were looking at the menu, and I couldn't believe it. Like, shots started, it was surreal, and people just started running. She got trampled over. We went through an exit door, ran down a hall, and all the doors were locked except one going up a flight of stairs to exit. And we didn't think that would be a good idea, but there was about 70 of us or 50 of us in that, and we were just like trapped, felt trapped.
There you go. Looks like in the Student Union building having lunch when those shots came out. And fortunately, they were able to get away, but apparently it took maybe a little bit of doing in order to get out and be safe.
And for some perspective, so they were touring the campus. It's that time of year, you're graduating, you are preparing maybe to send your child, your students off to school, and they were touring the campus when this happened.
Understand the last day of class, though, is a week from Friday, so a week from tomorrow. So they might be touring maybe for summer classes or whatever. But a number of people were still on campus when those shots rang out.
And you mentioned we are approaching the holiday weekend, but still very busy. You mentioned college tours. I have a nephew who recently did college tours, so it's absolutely that time of year. And again, mass shootings are something that this is a part of our reality, and when you see those images, I saw some on social media of the shoes, the laptops, the belongings kind of scattered across campus. In situations like this, you hope you have training or understanding of what to do, but essentially people are running for their lives.
Absolutely.
They're running for their lives, and they're trying to get to safety, and for a father to be there with his children and have to experience something like that. That is unimaginable.
You know, campus police obviously train for this. They never want to see anything like this happen, but they train for this. They try to be on the scene, obviously, as soon as possible, as well as law enforcement. I mean, we even have the FBI agents from Jacksonville traveling, and they're in Tallahassee right now to go ahead and try to secure that area. So these students are we're trying to take care of them. They're trying to take care of them as quick as possible.
Yeah, certainly heartbreaking. I keep mentioning we started out with not much information, and just as time went on, we're nearing 2 hours here from when we initially got that alert to find out that 5 people are dead in that shooting in Tallahassee, Florida.
We have Jake Stofan, who is going to Tallahassee right now to FSU. We understand that he's on the phone to kind of give us the very latest, because he's checking to see what is going on campus right now. Jake, what do you have for us?
Well, all I've heard so far, I'm talking with a sports management professor over at FSU that I used to talk to for various stories while I worked over in the city. He tells me that he's currently on lockdown. His wife is in the business college. That building has been evacuated, and they're waiting for an update right now. Still waiting to hear back from various local officials on the ground. I have been in contact with the state attorney general's office. They're unable to confirm anything right now, saying that, this is a pretty chaotic situation. There's a lot of different moving parts here. But we are still working. We've reached out to Tallahassee Memorial Hospital to just kind of get on their radar to let them know, to include us on any updates. We've also reached out to the state attorney there, Jack Campbell, directly, still waiting on a response from him. Also reached out to the governor's office and the Tallahassee Police Department, as well as the FBI. As we know, members of the Jacksonville field office from the FBI are also responding to this incident. Obviously, horrifically tragic. As someone who spent 5 years of their life on that campus, near that campus in Tallahassee, it's just horrendous to know that this has happened, and my one who may have been impacted or hurt. And I'm also keeping my friends and colleagues who are already there on scene in my prayers as well.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation, and something that, again, as I mentioned, we've experienced time and time again in our state and across the country. Just to give some more insight, there have been 81 mass shootings so far this year, and that includes what happened today. There were 502 last year, according to the Gun Violence Archive. If my producer can give me clarity on that number. But 81 reported already.
Yeah, way too many. Those were statistics that we don't want to report and don't want to hear, but unfortunately it's reality. The Tallahassee Democrat is also reporting that a sophomore at FSU, Rafael Fernandez, was in class in the Rivetta building at the time when an alarm came over the PA system. So that alerted the students something was going on. An alert also flashed on the screen in the lecture hall at the time, according to the Democrat. The professor at the time, since he was in class, locked the doors, and the students stood in an area of the room without any windows at the time. Of course, trained to do that. Professors are trained to have the students do that. And eventually some Tallahassee police officers did come on the scene. They did open up the doors, and apparently the students walked out with their hands up and were escorted then out of the building into a clear area in a safe zone. And we understand that police are still going door to door in Tallahassee at FSU at each of those buildings to try to get any students who may be still holed up, and professors too, out safely.
Yeah, and another element to this, we know, according to our sources, that there were 2 shooters involved. There's a lot of work that will have to happen to understand who these people were. We don't know if they were students, if they were even from the state. And then a motive. Why would they choose to do this? Why would they choose to do it at FSU? Did they have any particular target. So that's why you see this multi-agency response, because they need experts and people who can come in and get those types of answers for the public. So many questions happen when you have an incident like this. It's tragic, it's senseless, but people still want to know what would prompt this kind of violence on a college campus. As we've mentioned, 5 dead, 4 hospitalized. We don't know the latest on their conditions. They were taken to Tallahassee Memorial. And again, sources telling us 2 shooters, 1 dead and 1 in custody right now.
Also, a little bit more information about the students who were on campus at the time. There were students in the college, a business building that's adjacent to the student union building where those shots rang out. They apparently heard a teacher running down the hallway, alerting them of the shooter in the student union building. A junior there said his class all hid in a smaller room within the classroom he was in with the doors locked. He said he was there for a final exam studying, and that he had an hour trying to drown out the chaos, but instead this happened. 20 to 30 shots fired just around noon today. We had this as breaking news on Action News Jax this morning, this afternoon, just as soon as those shots rang out. When we heard about it, that was about 12:20, and then gave you the latest information. Did not know, other than a shooting happened, what happened, but now we know 2 shooters involved and those people dead.
And earlier I was listening in to you and Shay talking about some of the changes that happened since the shooting there in 2014, but I think one thing that we've seen across college campuses and even at elementary, high school, middle schools, these alert systems. Sure. And that allows people the chance to respond, to shelter in place, and to get information from credible sources, because with social media, a lot of people are putting out things. Everything might not be factual, but this is an example of that FSU alert that went out. Those are alerts that go to phones, email systems, and this one that went out, it says that this is an emergency message for the FSU students, continue to shelter in place. And it mentioned the active shooter situation at the student union and for people to stay alert. So this gives people the opportunity to try to make the best decisions for their safety in that moment. And so those alert systems ideally help to save more lives, help to prevent additional tragedies. Here in this case, obviously, and depending on what type of weapon was used, we know the type of harm that can be caused in a matter of seconds, depending on the types of weapons used.
You mentioned about the shelter in place too, not only obviously for college campuses, but high school campuses and even elementary school campuses, all the way down to kindergarten. My wife was a substitute teacher, and they had drills. Yeah. Unfortunately, they have these drills, so the students know what to do, the teachers know what to do, and she had to corral students, first or second graders, into the classroom bathrooms and close the door. Everyone had to be quiet until they got the all clear sign. So not only happening at college campuses, but all the way down to elementary school buildings too.
It's an unfortunate but necessary tool that we need in our society today. I want to read a quick statement from the FBI director. It says that my team and I have been briefed on the tragic shooting at Florida State, and our FBI Jacksonville team is on the ground assisting. We will provide full support to local law enforcement as needed. Please keep the FSU community in your prayers. I've seen statements also on Twitter from Ashley Moody, former governor, State Senator Rick Scott. So many people responding to this. You see news like this happening and you think, oh, again. Yeah. And to see that this is reports of death involved in injury. I mean, this is just a difficult thing to wrap your head around every time it happens.
We heard earlier about that father who was having lunch with his child there in the student union building. They were going through a tour of the campus at the time when those shots rang out. We also have an interview from another father who was on campus at the time. Let's listen to that.
We got a call from my daughter before it hit the news. We've been on the phone with her for over an hour ever since. As a father, my wife's in the car and a mother, we are concerned for our daughter, but at least we're talking to our daughter and know that she is safe. Our hearts and prayers and minds are to anyone who's possibly had a child or a relative who's been injured or possible loss of life. And as a new pastor here in Tallahassee at the Bethel AME Church family on Orange Avenue, I am praying for our city, and for the Florida State University community.
You've been talking with your daughter. What has she been telling you?
She's just been real nervous because of not knowing what's going on, feeling safe, and then feeling not safe with movement, and just wanting this event to be over as far as this day and to be safe again in her home with her family.
Once again, that man, a pastor there, and his daughter on campus, fortunately communicating with her at least and talking to her on the phone. But you can imagine some parents who aren't able maybe to get through for whatever reason, because a number of students unfortunately left so quickly. They left their shoes, they left their phones, they left their books on campus there on the grass if they were, hanging out there at the time, and they ran away from the scene as soon as possible.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, their family's still waiting. There's a hotline that's been established. There's a location on campus that you're being asked to go to if you are one of those parents. Hopefully, at this point, you have made contact, but if you haven't, there is still a shelter in place happening, and they're still sweeping the campus to get students off. So your student or your loved one, faculty member may not be in a position where they can get to you just yet as they work to clear that campus. Let's get to that statement from Ashley Moody saying that my office has been in contact with school leadership about the tragic reporting on FSU's campus. I am praying for the safety of the students, faculty, and all first responders involved. The Governor DeSantis also had put out a tweet saying that he was also praying for everyone involved. And obviously this is a situation that is in the hands of law enforcement and those medical teams caring for those who were hurt in all of this. And injuries in situations like this, we don't know if all the people were wounded or if they were hurt. You heard the dad describing almost people being trampled as they were running to get away and getting hurt in that way. Those are some details that we are still working to confirm in terms of the injuries.
We also have some new information about the number of people who were injured. Now, instead of 4, 6 people have been injured, 5 dead and 6 injured, taken to local hospitals. The Tallahassee General Hospital in that area. Once again, 2 shooters, 1 in custody and 1 dead. So at least 6 people injured right now, being treated, looks like for gunshot wounds possibly, at the area hospital. So we're continuing to get some new numbers right now. The new information about the number of people dead and those injured just came out about 20 minutes ago. So we're continuing to try to get you the very latest on that.
Yeah, CBS News got a chance to talk to a student named Blake Leonard, who described hearing about 12 gunshots, and then he saw people running off from the student union, and then right after that he says he heard another 12 to 15 gunshots, and that lines up with some of the reports we were hearing earlier from students describing maybe hearing 20 to 30 gunshots. So this particular student described hearing about 12 gunshots, seeing people run away from the student union, and then hearing another 12 to 15 gunshots. So obviously, again, this happening right around that lunch hour, and the student union is such a busy place on campus in general, but especially you imagine people during that lunch hour, campus tours, a lot of activities happening ahead of the holiday.
Right, because it happened right at noon, right? And then people just scattered after they heard those gunshots. And for those people who didn't hear the gunshots because maybe they were on the other side of campus, far away from the student union building, FSU had alerts out both on the phone, on the screen, and professors who were teaching classes at the time were getting their kids to safety, at least in a safe spot in the classroom before they got the all clear in order to possibly leave. And that all clear, of course, came from police officers who are now still going door to door to try to get students out safely.
Another statement in from Florida Attorney General James Uthmeyer says, my office is responding to the active shooter situation on FSU's campus, and we will provide updates as they become available. Some more accounts from students on campus. This one coming from CBS News Miami. They spoke to Ava Arenado, an FSU student there, who described being in class when that alert went out, and then said that one of my classmates got the alert on her phone and then announced it to the rest of the class. And then that student describes, my teacher immediately started barricading the door, and then another student said that she'd rather go home. So we all just kind of ran to our cars.
Boy. Also, we're hearing more student stories about what happened today. student by the name of Sam Schwartz and Sean Goldig said that they were in the basement of the FSU Student Union building when that shooting started. They said everyone started freaking out. Schwartz said that he heard maybe 10 gunshots while they were working on a group project at the time. The group of 8 cornered themselves in a hallway and started to barricade the opening with trash cans and plywood. There was a quote here saying, "I remember learning to do the best you can to make them take time because they don't want to do anything that takes any time. They're just trying to get as many people," according to this one quote that this one student, so he was just trying to do whatever he could in order to keep him and everyone else safe. He said the whole event took maybe some 10 minutes, but of course it felt a lot longer. So students heard law enforcement officers also going up and down those hallways, telling everyone to come out with their hands up, and everyone also was patted down and checked before evacuating because you can never be too careful.
Yeah, one student describing that they've experienced a lot of drills. We talked about people's common for us to practice for these types of things, and said, but because of how big the school is, I was really scared that this was something serious. And other students who were right off campus described hearing all of the sirens, and they knew something is wrong. The sirens, as the sirens continued, this is something very serious. And now we know that this was a shooting situation. If you are just joining us, we have been continuing our breaking news coverage of a shooting on the campus of Florida State University in Tallahassee.
That's right, 5 dead and 6 injured. We understand one of those injured critically, as well as 2 shooters, 1 dead and the other taken to the hospital. We also want to hear again from a father who was on campus at the time when that shooting, a student who was on campus at the time when that shooting started.
Nervous, I'm scared for my friends. I'm making sure I'm checking up on them, and I just hope everyone's okay and this gets handled soon. I was parking my car, walking back, and as I was walking back, I see these group of girls crying, really upset, walking back from the student union, told me they heard gunshots, and they just ran and came back to their apartment where I was walking to.
All right, there's a comments from a student there on the other side of campus there commenting about what happened at around noon today. Florida Speaker of the House just posted on X saying, "What we are watching unfold at FSU is terrifying and every parent's worst nightmare." We're continuing to monitor the news here in Tallahassee and urge everyone to pray for the students, families, faculty, first responders, and all involved. Also, USA Today reporting that President Donald Trump said that he had been fully briefed on the active shooter situation at Florida State University in Tallahassee, and also Florida Governor Ron DeSantis writing, "Our prayers are with our FSU family and state law enforcement is actively responding." Public high schools in that area also dismissing early because of this shooting in Leon County. They're all dismissing early according to a social media post. Tallahassee is urging everyone to pray, of course, for the students, the families, the faculty, the first responders, and all involved in this shooting.
Yeah, and loved ones are being told to go to the Donald L. Tucker Civic Center in Tallahassee to be reunited with loved ones. For those of you who have students or loved ones on that campus, or if you're planning to make your way, or if you're on the road and just listening to us on our live stream, loved ones are being told to go to the Donald L. Tucker Civic Center in Tallahassee to be reunited with their loved ones. And we know that law enforcement agencies are staging just off campus. Several involved, the campus police, the local police, the FBI from Jacksonville, several entities involved in trying to make sure this campus is safe and secure, make sure anyone who needs help is getting the help that they need, and working then to launch into the investigation, trying to figure out why this all happened.
Those 6 injured people at Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare, spokesperson there, Stephanie Dorosky, says that they are at the hospital right now, 1 in critical and the rest in serious condition. Once again, out of the 6 injured people, 1 in critical, the rest in serious condition. The hospital also has the only level 2 trauma center in the Big Bend region. So that is at least one good thing. Those people are being well taken care of right now. And a level 2 trauma center is required to have trauma surgeons on call 24/7. So they are getting the best help they can, those 6 people who are injured right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And even though we got alerted about this around 12:20, even here at this 2 o'clock hour, there is still work to be done on that campus to make sure the buildings are clear and get everyone to safety. This is an undertaking. This is an investigation that will take likely days, just getting evidence. You talked about all the items that were dropped.
Right.
Going through that student union, the area outside of it, and just keeping the evidence secure as they try to, again, get to a motive and understand more about the people responsible for this. So 2 hours in, and they haven't even really started. At this point, the focus is on safety for the faculty and the students and everyone on the campus right now.
Then, of course, the investigation afterwards. But this is some video that was taken from a phone by a meteorological student there at FSU. Looks like he was on some type of overpass and shooting.
Looking down.
On Tennessee Street there, where you see a number of students crossing that street. This was at around 12:03, so it's right after that shooting happened, and you see a number of students crossing the street at the time. We also saw, you can see on social media right now, a number of some students being taken and carried away by local law enforcement and then transferred to ambulances at the time to be brought to the hospital there at Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare.
Yeah, and we also saw images of students, video of them walking out of buildings with their hands up. Such eerie imagery. I remember seeing similar when Columbine happened. And even the most recent school shootings. We had a school shooting, a high school shooting up in Georgia, and just seeing those students walking out with their hands up, and high schoolers or middle schoolers when this type of thing happens. But that's, again, a part of the protocol and a part of that training that, we've become accustomed to, the law enforcement coming in to secure the buildings, people being told to leave, and they have to make sure for the safety of everyone, because in a chaotic scene like that, where you have hundreds or thousands of people, they don't know who's who. And so the goal is to get everyone out safely, while also making sure that there is no existing threat. But it was just kind of eerie to see those students having to walk out like that, and just an image that we've seen play out over and over and over.
Plus, it's such a large campus, too. Some 40,000 students go to FSU. We've seen similar situations play out, possibly in elementary schools or high schools, where, of course, the student body is a lot lower, but FSU, a large school, one of our state universities, still the classes are going on right now at FSU. We understand the last day of class for the semester isn't until a week from Friday, so some people may have been taking a break pretty soon for Easter, but still there were looked like a number of people on campus at the time at FSU.
Yeah, we've been kind of compiling information. Our Jake Stowe fan is on the road, but a lot of local media there in Tallahassee doing a great job. And we also have our sources and stations here across Florida getting information, but those student accounts keep coming out, and one of the students described the whole thing, said they were working on a group project when they heard about 10 or so shots, and described taking trash cans and things and trying to barricade, but said that the whole thing maybe lasted 10 minutes, but says that it felt a lot longer, and that's when they started seeing the law enforcement making their way into the buildings, telling everyone to come out.
Exactly. And that was in one area there. Another area, some kids were still in classrooms at the time, right? And they were getting instruction. They either heard on their phones, or possibly the professor told them after he was alerted, and the professors were trying to get kids in safe areas of the classroom and then trying to protect them the best they could.
Yeah, and that account I just mentioned was actually an RA on campus, and says that they train for these types of situations, but they never thought that they would have to use them. But when they reacted, they just trusted their training.
Right.
And that's so important that we talked about that even in our local elementary schools and high schools. This is a part of what happens. They have the technology, these alerts that can go to the cell phones. Some of them are items or key cards that teachers can wear, certain barricades that can be used for the door. I mean, we've even done stories on bulletproof backpacks.
Right.
That is the world that we are in, but that training is a big part of it. And it sounds like these students on the campus, a few accounts I've read, and they talked about practicing and having drills and being prepared for these worst case scenarios, hoping that they never happen.
We said earlier that President Donald Trump was alerted of this mass shooting over at FSU. Here's what he had to say just minutes ago.
Thank you very much, everybody. And I've been briefed on the Florida State University, Tallahassee active shooting. I guess it's an active shooter. Fully briefed as to where we are right now. It's a shame. It's a horrible thing. Horrible that things like this take place. And we'll have more to say about it later.
There you have it. President Trump speaking about the shooting in Tallahassee. Also, there's been a statement from the FBI director saying, my team and I have been briefed on the tragic student shooting at Florida State, and our FBI Jacksonville team is on the ground assisting right now. We'll provide full support to local law enforcement as needed. Please keep FSU in your prayers. There's a tweet right there from the FBI director.
Yeah, and obviously we know that those federal resources are at play here, and that's usually the case when we see incidents of this scale. And so expect to be hearing more from the White House, I'm sure, as we get more information and really get a feel of the full scope of what has happened here on the campus of FSU. And we had a phone number that people were able to also call if they wanted to try to reach out and try to get more information. We're working to get that phone number for you. I know we've given it out a few times earlier today. If we can get that number up, Phil, I know we were going over.
We're trying to get that number up again. We'll go ahead and get that
we'll
to
work
you
to get that
in
to you.
just a bit. But once again, 5 people dead, 6 injured on the FSU campus. One of those injured people critically injured, and the rest, the other 5, in serious condition right now. We're continuing to follow this breaking news story. Once again, to reset, this shooting happened in and around the Student Union building of FSU at around noon today. Apparently some people heard about a dozen shots and then silence for a while, Tanika, you were saying, and then about another dozen shots afterwards. So between 20 to 30 shots being fired at the time, killing those 5 people.
Yeah, and we're working to get information on the conditions of the others. You mentioned at least one we know of was in critical condition over at Tallahassee Memorial, which has a trauma unit, which is critical in situations like this, that they can get to a hospital that's relatively close and has staff that are trained to handle situations like this and deal with critically injured patients.
We understand those other 5 people are in serious condition right now, but fortunately have those trauma surgeons there to go ahead and help them out. So we're continuing to follow this story for you. We also have Jake Stofan, a photographer, who will be in Tallahassee within the hour to give us the very latest right there. But there are a number of streets blocked off around the Tallahassee campus there at FSU. Scores and scores of law enforcement in that area blocking off the area. Those 2 shooters, one dead and the other one arrested, possibly hurt some way, possibly in gunfire. We understand that some pictures on social media show someone shackled to a gurney being brought into an ambulance. We're still trying to confirm that, but those 2 shooters have been apprehended.
And that information coming from sources, and that's going to be critical for investigators to have someone in custody that they can hopefully probe for information to get a better handle on why something like this would happen, and also learn more about their identities. We don't know if they were students, if they were employed at the university. We don't have any clue who these people are, their ties to the campus, or if this was targeted, or if this was just a random attack.
Right, we're still trying to get to the bottom of the motive, right? And of course the FBI and law enforcement trying to figure that out now. One possibly surviving shooter may or may not be talking. We'll find out in a while, but nonetheless, innocent people killed and injured today on that FSU campus, and so many prayers going out to people in the FSU community, all schools in that area too. Obviously, FSU classes canceled. All the other schools in that area, high school in Leon County, canceled as well because of this shooting.
And Phil, we want to get out to some new sound coming in now from a student.
I was in class and it was about 1 o'clock and the shots rang out and we were like, is that construction going on or what was happening? And so we got up, looked out the window, and I remember looking outside and hearing 5 more shots go off. And I was like, what's going on? So I saw kids running away from the student union, and I walked away from the window. Then I walked back to the window and heard 6, 7 more shots ring out. And at that point we were like, okay, there's a shooting going on. So we ran from our classroom, went to the offices, locked the doors, barricaded ourselves in there, and then we waited and was looking out the window again and saw the SWAT teams pull up, the police cars, the FBI come, and at that point we're like, okay, we got to bunker ourselves in, and we were praying, we're like, okay, something's got to change here, and the SWAT team came into the room. They're like, stay where you are, don't move, and we were in there for about 30 minutes, and at that point we were escorted out. About 100 SWATs were inside the building, and our hands were up, and so then we were escorted outside past the Union and then into a safe space.
There you go, a series of what happened. And at first I'm sure the students hear this noise and they're wondering, what is that? Is it firecrackers? Is it something else that they're unfamiliar with? And all of a sudden it sinks in, oh, this might be a shooting, and then they reacted.
Yeah, and he talked about being kind of ushered out from that students' union area. And based on some of the debris left behind, it looks like it was really crowded at the time. And it's a lovely day outside, I'm sure. I mean, they have like a lot of beautiful green space on that campus. It's just generally a busy area. And so for them to try to coordinate those efforts, some people, as I read from one of the accounts, just ran for their lives, ran to their cars, tried to figure out how to get out. Others found ways to try to barricade in their classrooms. Shelter in place was the instruction that the alert gave for people to do, shelter in place, and then wait for police to come and give a safe word to get them out. But just listening to him describe what happened.
Sure.
I mean,
and then some people, they might have been outside, maybe having lunch outside at the time since it's such a beautiful day. They left everything on the lawn there, including some cell phones. And when parents were trying to get a hold of their children, the cell phone doesn't answer. And of course, they're trying to find information and they can't. And I'm sure the kids are not allowed back in as soon as people leave. The whole area is barricaded. It's all taped off, so they can't be going back to retrieve any of their lost items. So we're trying to get the very latest information for you on how to get a hold of your loved ones there and the numbers to call. Let's go ahead and put that, if we can. Aaron, do we have that phone number again that people can call to go ahead and see if you got any additional information? 911, of course, so the Tallahassee Police Department is trying to get information out to as many people as possible. We're also still awaiting for some news conferences about this, just to kind of give us an update, a broad brush view of what happened today specifically. But as we know right now, 5 people are dead and 6 are injured on that shooting that happened roughly about 2 hours and 15 minutes ago. That
information coming from sources that we have. That number is 850-644-INFO. Again, 850-644-INFO. And then you can also get information at alerts.fsu.edu. We're also posting updates on actionnewsjax.com. I'm checking the alerts page. The last one was posted at 1:04, just telling people to continue to shelter in place and that officers would come and get you. And again, as he mentioned, calling 911 if you needed help. But that was the last message posted about 1:04. But if there are parents looking to get information, you can call 850-644-INFO. If you can't reach your student, as Phil said, if maybe they don't have their phones, they could be in an area on campus where they don't have access to their phones at this time. Hopefully you will be able to get in touch with your loved one soon. They are telling people to go to the Donald L. Tucker Civic Center in Tallahassee. That is a reunification location. They're telling people to go there to make contact with their loved ones.
Once again, that active shooter, 2 of them in that area at around noon. 1 was killed, the other one taken into custody right now. We understand that they're still actively, obviously engaged of what's going on at FSU's campus. They're still trying to get any remaining students and faculty out. A lot of people scared today at about 2 hours ago, about noon. A lot of people were shaking. They said a lot was going on. A lot of students were concerned for their friends, of course, concerned to let their parents and their relatives know that they were safe. Some students were in the university's main library at the time. One person said that the alarms began going off, warning of an active shooter. And you may remember, if you've been here for a while, 10.5 years ago at the Strozier Library, that library, where there was a shooting. 3 people were injured, and that shooter, after he came out and walked out of that library, was killed by police. A 20-year-old Jr. said that law enforcement officers today escorted him and other students out of the library with their hands over their heads at the time. Just wanted to make sure everyone was safe. So once again, law enforcement still actively clearing out the rooms on the university's main campus. It's a big campus. Some 40,000 students, of course, go there. There's a number of buildings. They're just trying to get to every building and every classroom to make sure that the kids are safe.
Yeah, and that's the priority. And as far as the second shooter, our law enforcement sources have told us that that second person is in custody. And again, you mentioned another one dead, but the focus right now is just making sure that everyone is safe and that any other threats are neutralized. And that number is now on the bottom of your screen for people who are looking to take updates. And let's try to go back to if we have that father who was on the campus tour, if we can get that sound back up. He was there on a campus tour with his child and described the moment that the shooting happened and the actions they took to try to get to safety. Do we have that ready, if we can bring that up?
My daughter was waiting at the table. We were looking at the menu, and I couldn't believe it. Like, shots started, it was surreal, and people just started running. She got trampled over. We went through an exit door, ran down a hall, and all the doors were locked except one going up a flight of stairs to exit. And we didn't think that would be a good idea, but there was about 70 of us or 50 of us in that, and we were just like trapped, like
so when
felt
did you
trapped.
Get out of the
And he said, what's 50 of us? A
Yes,
group?
in that area.
Just in that small area, trying to figure out what was going on. I imagine it was terrifying.
Yeah. Also, Paige Miller, an FSU freshman, was in a restroom outside her classroom, according to the Tallahassee Democrat, and that's right next to the Student Union building. When she heard some loud bangs, she thought the roof was collapsing at the time, and then suddenly 3 girls came running in, and one of them was crying, she said. One of the girls then looks over at her stall at the time and tells her to call the police because there was an active shooter there. And she called 911 right away with there was no lock in the restroom door either, so they held it shut, she said, for 20 minutes until police arrived. They were stuck in that restroom at the time, and when she came outside, she saw one person on the ground surrounded by officers. No word if that possibly was the shooter or possibly one of the students hit. We also have a new interview from another student who was there when that shooting occurred. Let's listen to that.
I mean, when I saw everyone flooding up the stairs, I kind of thought that like the shooter was like in the library. I mean, like nobody told me where it was. They said like Landis or like whatever, and I was just in utter disbelief. I was like, you never think that it's gonna be like you and your campus, but you really never know.
There you go, another student commenting about what's going on. You can imagine how they felt, right, when that came out, not knowing what was going on, just to run. And then you're trying to figure out, where am I going to run? Run away from the gunshots, right? And that's what they did.
And if you think about it, for those who have worked at that campus, faculty or staff, and if they've been there since November of 2024, this is now their second shooting that they've experienced on that campus.
Yeah, it's a sad situation this afternoon over at the FSU campus, where those 5 people have died, 6 injured from 2 shooters. One of those shooters dead, the other one in custody right now. It happened at around noon today while we were on Action News Jax at noon, telling you the very latest towards the end of our newscast. We also have our own Capitol correspondent, Jake Sofan, heading to Tallahassee right now. He's going to be there soon, and we're going to be getting the latest information from him.
Yeah, and we've been talking about just the shootings that have happened there on this campus. 81 mass shootings have happened so far this year, including this shooting at FSU today, and there were 502 mass shootings reported all of last year. These numbers are coming from the Gun Violence Archive, and we've been getting different accounts and reading and hearing from students about their reaction in the recent years since mass shootings have become more prominent. We've learned about the run, hide, and fight. And we've kind of seen, aside from the fight, we've seen a lot of the people talking about trying to just get to safety, and others doing the barricades, locking themselves in the bathroom, and seeing the students and the residence assistant talking about having that training, going through those drills to prepare for this type of thing.
Right, and you mentioned run, hide, or fight, right? If a shooting's happening, and maybe you see the shooter, maybe you don't see the shooter, you're trying to figure out what to do. Do I leave? Obviously, that's what most people are going to be doing, but apparently one of the students said that she heard police saying they were looking for a shotgun. So this was, once again, reported by the Tallahassee Democrat. So they were apparently still in that grassy area when they overheard police saying that. So we're still trying to figure out what type of gun was used, as we mentioned before, specific number of shots that were fired. Obviously there was a lot, between 20 to 30 shots fired, possibly at different times too, and not all at once.
Earlier we mentioned that all the classes have been canceled. Also, all Florida State athletics home events through Sunday, April 20th have been canceled. The FSU Seminoles, coming from their official Twitter, that all Florida State athletics home events through Sunday, April 20th have now been canceled. It says further updates on events scheduled for next week will be communicated when available. And I mentioned a few minutes ago how these types of investigations will last for days. We'll get information. We're expecting to have news conferences at some point during the day as police render the area safe and can start giving us updates. But the broader investigation is going to take some time, and this campus is going to be impacted, especially this is now happening a second time. And so those athletics are going to be canceled at home events canceled through Sunday.
And the investigation on the two shooters too, one dead and of course the one injured, you would assume they knew each other. We don't know exactly where they were on campus other than the Student Union building, if they were together or if they were apart in different areas of the Student Union building, if and how it was possibly coordinated right now. But a number of people in that area in the Student Union building having lunch, since it was around noon. We served food there and they were enjoying their lunch until they heard those shots ring out, and then they ran just for their lives in order to get out of that area. And some, apparently doors were blocked or locked and they had to find other areas out. And it was a panic at the time, and they just tried to do the best they can to get to safety. And
let's show you some new video now on campus. These are students getting on a bus to leave that campus area. You can see that bus says out of service, and you can see a law enforcement officer there, but students waiting in line to get on a bus to be removed from that area. New video coming in now, several different law enforcement officers there, different uniforms. You can see bulletproof vests, but students just kind of patiently waiting, some of them looking on their phones, kind of taking in the view. But yeah, these buses there to remove students from that area on campus as they continue to sweep and evacuate those buildings and get students to safety.
A number of people commenting about the shooting today, including President Donald Trump. He confirmed to reporters that he was aware of that active shooter situation. We heard from him earlier too, and that he was fully briefed as to where things stand at the moment. He commented saying it's a shame, a horrible thing, horrible things like this even take place, and he's going to have more to say about that later. So once again, Donald Trump is commenting, as well as our governor, Ron DeSantis, too, giving his thoughts and prayers to the people at Florida State and the Florida State community.
And obviously, when things happen like this, it also leads to conversations about gun control and gun safety and background checks. So some of that's starting to bubble up on social media, as it typically does with our lawmakers at the state and federal level whenever these types of things happen. As I mentioned, 81 mass shootings already this year, and the second one here on the campus of FSU. We are standing by to get more information from investigators. We know Jacksonville FBI is there. The FBI director over the agency also put out a statement. A lot of resources will be put into trying to figure out why this happened, but they're in such just very early stages. This happened around noon, as we put that statement up from Kash Patel. This happened just after noon, and so here we are as we approach 2:30 with the law enforcement there being on scene. We saw the video of the students being put on buses. We know that folks are trying to meet up at the Donald L. Tucker Civic Center to get reunited. So again, very early stages of what will be a very intense investigation.
We have some new sound for you this afternoon with someone who had been there about 2.5 hours ago when that shooting rang out.
So I made my way back out where the old bookstore is. About a minute later, we heard about 8 to 10 gunshots.
And then you mentioned that you saw someone that appeared to have been shot next to you? Or
yeah, so there was another gentleman that was running away, and looks like he was shot in the pelvic area, and he laid down and he got help and assistance from the police.
And then you just made your way across the street? How long was it until you thought?
I was there for probably about 45 minutes until they started clearing all around the student union, and then I had to walk around.
What was going through your head through the whole entire thing?
Just surreal. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. Just being in here at college campus, everything was really quiet, then all chaotic.
There you have it, that one man seeing that one person shot and hit in the pelvic region.
Yeah.
6 people injured on the FSU campus. Now, 1 is in critical and 5 others are in serious condition right now. That's according to Tallahassee General Hospital right there. But I can imagine those shots being fired, you're not knowing what's happening. You don't want to be in that area when it's so you're running away. And that's what a lot of those folks did. Unfortunately, some got hit by bullets.
And I think it's important that he also mentioned he saw the person who was shot, but how quickly they got help. Again, we saw the scene of the law enforcement rushing on campus, and we know that they have a hospital there trained in trauma, specializing in trauma there in Tallahassee. And so that is one of the benefits. I remember when Pulse happened, and the hospital there was just a couple of blocks away, and that made a critical difference, a life-saving difference for those victims in that incident. So them having access to that trauma center there in Tallahassee is very, very important.
Certainly, those surgeons have to be there 24/7, so that's a good thing, at least for the people who are injured. Also, Tallahassee Police Department, they had a statement saying multiple law enforcement agencies are actively working to secure Florida State University campus. The student reunification point is being established once again at the Donald L. Tucker Civic Center. So that's where parents or friends or relatives can go ahead and meet students who now are being taken out still of the classrooms in that area by law enforcement at gunpoint. They're giving a secret code so they could open up the door, get those kids, students, as well as faculty members out of those classrooms and then sent to that reunification center in order to meet up relatives.
Yeah, that's good information to have. And we also have a phone number that we were able to get where parents and people can call if you just want information on what's happening here. If we can put that number up, 850-644 info. That is the number that the college is telling people to reach out to for information. And also they have the FSU alert system. But I did check, nothing new posted in about an hour when I last checked. We're going to continue to keep an eye on that as well. I'm going to try to refresh it now to see if any new information. No, it's still the 104 message telling people to shelter in place.
Yeah, and of course we have the Tallahassee Police Department, but also FSU, like all universities, they have their own police department. So they were on the scene as quickly as possible. Possibly some of those officers were there 10 years ago when that shooting happened at the Strozier Library. Yeah. And they've had a lot of training, additional training since then in order to handle possible situations. And unfortunately, 10 years later, something like this has happened again, and apparently more tragically too, because of the number of people who were killed.
Yeah, I remember when that shooting happened in the 2024 shooting. In that case, 3 were shot, and the gunman was ultimately killed.
Right,
in
right
that
outside
case
the
back,
library.
In 2014.
Right, and right here, one gunman killed here, the other one injured as well and taken to the hospital. So police are trying to get to the bottom of the shooting that happened now 2.5 hours ago on the FSU campus, where a number of students, of course, heard that shooting. Possibly a very crowded student union building at the time when those shots rang out. A barrage of possibly two different rounds of shots of a dozen, and then another dozen a little while later, and then possibly from 2 separate shooters at the time that were firing their guns.
And we heard accounts of the number of shots. Some people said 20 to 30. Some people talked about it being a burst of shots, and then a pause, and then another burst of shots. There's video circulating on social media, but we're trying to be very careful with what we put on TV because we don't want to put out any misinformation or videos that aren't associated with this. But you can see the panic and some people running, and there is some video circulating online that does appear to show the sound of the gunfire as well.
Exactly, yeah. Once again, President Trump has been briefed about the situation. He spoke about it just about 15 minutes ago.
Thank you very much, everybody. And I've been briefed on the Florida State University, Tallahassee active shooting. I guess it's an active shooter. Fully briefed as to where we are right now. It's a shame. It's a horrible thing. Horrible that things like this take place. And we'll have more to say about it later.
There you have it, President Donald Trump speaking about the tragedy. Florida State University is the oldest university in the state of Florida, founded in 1851. It has an enrollment, it was said, a number of people, I mean, a lot of people, some 44,000 students and also about 16,000 faculty. No word, exactly how many people were on campus at the time, but as we're getting towards the end of the semester, which I believe ends a week from tomorrow, there were probably a fair amount of people on campus. We heard from that one student who was studying for his finals at the time when shots rang out. He wanted peace and quiet for an hour, and then he heard those gunshots, and then he started running. And
naturally, when these types of things happen, most schools make all kinds of precautions, exemptions rather, for exams and things, because this is a tragedy. Sure. And I'm sure we'll learn more information about that. That's probably the furthest thing from some people's mind, but we are in that time of year where the semester's winding down, and so I'm sure as we learn more about, we've heard about the home athletic events being canceled till Sunday. I'm sure we'll also get more information about how they'll proceed with the semester kind of coming to a close.
Usually a busy street there, Tennessee, which is right in front of FSU. Student Union building not very far away. That was blocked off just shortly after those shootings happened. A lot of police officers in that area. Looks like there might be a little bit of a cross traffic right now going on, but for the most part, schools have been canceled in Leon County right now. Of course, FSU, all the classes there canceled, as well as all the schools in that county, just as a precaution to make sure all the students are safe.
And earlier, when Shay was up here, and she's a FAMU alum, and she was talking about it being such a close-knit college town with multiple campuses. New information now coming from FAMU. They put out a tweet offering their love and prayers to Florida State University, the community there during that time. It says, please remain #850 strong. The university also putting out a FAMU alert that FAMU has canceled classes and its optional remote work for April 17th. And the statement reads, in response to the shooting incident at Florida State University, Florida A&M University is canceling all classes and student activities on main campus for the remainder of the day, effective immediately. Students may leave the engineering building but may not return to FSU's main campus. They have a partnership with the engineering program with FAMU and FSU. And it also says that FAMU employees have the option to work remotely for the rest of the day. But again, FAMU offering their love and prayers to the FSU community, and they have canceled classes and all student activities on the FAMU main campus for the rest of the day. And FAMU employees have the option to work remotely, and any students who participate in that partnership with the engineering program at FSU, they may leave the engineering building, but they may not return to the FSU campus. So if you have a FAMU student, that's new information coming in. They probably have received that alert, but if not, that is information for FAMU students. The
latest information too from FSU, law enforcement still clearing the buildings. Also, the university announced that all classes and business operations are canceled through Friday through tomorrow, April 18th. It also added that essential employees should check with their supervisors for further reporting instructions. And once again, athletic events in Tallahassee are canceled throughout the weekend. So the last time Florida State had an active shooter, unfortunately, they had one somewhat recent memory of 10 and a half years ago. There was a man by the name of Myron May. He was 31 years old. He went into the university's Strozier Library. It happened just after midnight. I remember it was on the morning show when this happened. We were reporting live, and he opened fire after midnight. Of course, not as many students there as it would be at noon, but still a fair amount of students there, injuring some 3 people before he was quickly shot and killed outside the library after he walked outside by a number of bullets by Tallahassee and FSU police at the time. They were, of course, waiting and surrounding the area of the library when that happened. Once again, that was in November of 2014, and he was an FSU graduate, and he was also an attorney who was mentally ill and suffered from paranoia, is what the reports came out. And he used a semi-automatic gun during the on-campus shooting. He shot at 7 people, but 3 of those people were injured by those bullets.
Yeah. You said 3 were injured in that particular shooting.
Right. He shot at 7 though, but 3 people were injured.
And I think one of them ended up being paralyzed from the injuries. I believe so.
They were critical.
Yeah, that was a terrible situation there.
We're trying to get the very latest on those injured folks in the hospital right now. We understand 1 is in critical condition and 5 in serious condition right now. All 6 of them were taken to the Tallahassee hospital, not far away from the FSU campus. And those trauma surgeons, fortunately, are there 24/7, and they're trying to do their best to, save them right now if that is needed, especially with the 1 person who is in critical condition.
Yeah, and they're encouraging students, again, the Tallahassee Police Department. We saw a bus coming to get students off campus, and they're encouraging everyone. The meetup point is at the Donald L. Tucker Civic Center. So if you have a loved one that's able to kind of start moving around on campus, or if they're standing by, once they are able to get out, that reunification point is the Donald L. Tucker Civic Center. That is where they're asking people to go to be reunited with loved ones.
You can imagine how frightening it was, right? At around noon today when this happened. Some people were in the Student Union building, other people were near there. So some people saw what was going on, other people didn't. They just heard what was going on. Like Paige Miller, we were mentioning her before. She was that FSU freshman. She was in the restroom outside her classroom at the Moore building. Now that's located right by the Student Union building where the shooting happened. She thought at the time that the roof was collapsing, and then she saw 3 girls run into the restroom and they were crying. So apparently they knew what was going on. They ran into the restroom for some type of security. The restroom stall doors do not have locks on them, so all of them went into one of the restroom stalls and they held the door shut for 20 minutes until the all clear was given, or at least some officers came in to go ahead and essentially rescue them.
We've been talking a little bit about training and the apps and all the different tools to try to keep people safe in the event of these kind of emergency situations. And the FSU Police Department's page talks about training that they do offer to survive an active shooter event. They actually have a class. They talk about the campus police department. They go over statistics on active shooters. They go over the run, hide, fight principles that we've talked about, and the importance of being present and aware of surroundings, how to respond and identify a suspicious person. And then they also even go over the way the law enforcement will respond in the event of an active shooter or a dangerous situation on campus. So that's something that's on the website, and a class, it's a 1-hour class that's actually led by the campus crime prevention officers, and to kind of, in an effort to save lives in the event something like this happens.
You have to have a procedure in place just in case something like this happens, not only for colleges, but for high schools and elementary schools as well. We understand at about 5 minutes ago, Leon County saying that all LS schools, Leon County schools, are back to normal operating procedures. The lockout for those schools, now this is not FSU, but all the other Leon County schools, that has been lifted district-wide. That's according to a post on X that the district just put down. But that student reunification still is going on now over at FSU for the folks who want to meet up with loved ones, or maybe who were just let out of classes by some law enforcement who came in to escort them out. That's at the Tucker Civic Center. And the Tampa Police Department is helping with that, trying to get all those students out.
Another school that's there, Tallahassee State College, they had put out a message to their students, faculty, and staff that they were also monitoring the situation at FSU and that there was no threat to their college. And they did say that they noted that many of their students live near FSU. And they live with FSU students, and they were just reminding their students to follow police instruction, shelter in place, do whatever they were told. They also noted that they were offering mental health services, recognizing that this type of incident can be distressing, and they provided some information about their counseling center. So that's information from Tallahassee State College. Now, we did have our Jake Stowe fan in the car headed to Tallahassee, and he has been able to speak to a student. So let's listen.
Yeah, it was about noon exactly. That was an hour from when I had gotten home from my class, which was in the EOAS building, or that Ocean and Atmospheric Sciences building, which was right next to the Union. So I had walked on Tennessee Street, the main road, back to my dorm about like 30 minutes prior to that text. And since then, we've just been huddled in my dorm. I've been talking to my suite mates back there who kind of have people they know who work at the hospitals, and they've been giving us information. But so far, all that I've heard from the university is that the active shooter was happening and that we need to shelter in place, but all the other information we've had to get from other people.
So you didn't hear any gunshots necessarily or anything like that that told you something was awry? It was the text that came through?
Yeah, I haven't personally heard any gunshots. It must have happened after I got home from my class at around 11:20 or so, but I did hear from people who did hear some things that were around the same area.
Do I understand right that you actually work in the student union?
I do. I work on the third floor. It's the student orgs and involvement office. I've texted everyone who works in that office, and everyone has been evacuated by police. They're all fine. But I very well could have been in the office today.
I mean, how are you processing this? I mean, like you said, you were there 30 minutes prior to presumably this all taking place, and I'm sure you're very concerned about your friends and whether anybody might have been hurt in this.
Thankfully, everyone I've reached out to has been fine, and no one that I know has known anyone who's been impacted by this or that we've seen videos of and everything. Honestly, for a while since we didn't know anything, it kind of felt unreal, as it so often does, because you're not seeing anything, no one's giving you any information. But just recently we've been able to log onto social media and see videos of like people lying bloody on the sidewalk, and it's like there's one video of someone filming and there's some lady covered in blood and there's blood on the sidewalk, and that's the same stretch of sidewalk that I take every morning to walk to my job or to my class, and that was very jarring. That made me genuinely very sick to my stomach, and it's a very unfortunate. I don't have the words to express how horrible this is. But personally, thankfully, no one I know has been personally impacted. Everyone I know has either been evacuated from where they were or were very far away to begin with. I did have a friend who was walking to his place of work today. Thankfully, he also didn't work today, so he wasn't already back there, but he was walking also to the Union because there's a Panera Bread in there, and he works at Panera, and people turned him away before they crossed the street and told him to go back home. But yeah, there's a lot of people I know who could have very easily been in the middle of it.
I mean, I know it's maybe cliche, but I mean, did you ever imagine when you went to college this year that you would find yourself in this situation?
Personally, I've never found myself in anything close to this. There have been, in middle school, we had drills, and then we had one actual thing where it's like in the neighborhood nearby, someone had a gun. So we huddled for a couple hours, but I've never gone through anything like this. My friend who works in the Union as well, he mentioned today that he had been through something similar. He'd been in a mall on Mother's Day because he's from Miami. It was in Miami that got shot up. And so to him, it's like, he would have never guessed it would have happened on campus at a university, but he's gone through similar things. It's just a shame.
Madison, are you from Jacksonville originally?
I'm from just south of Jacksonville, Fleming Island.
Oh, okay. That's where I'm from as well. So I think that's how moms got contacted and connected.
Yeah.
Madison, I'm thankful to hear that you're okay and that your friends are okay. You have my phone number. if you hear anything, if you're able to let me know when they get you out of the dorms and you're kind of given the all clear, please let me know, just so I can kind of keep everybody updated and make sure that you're okay and everybody else is okay that you're around.
Good.
I'm gonna let you get back to it. I'm sure that your phone's blowing up with your family and friends and everybody else trying to make sure you're okay. So I'll let you get back to letting them know and keeping them in the loop.
Yeah. Okay. If you're curious, I just wanted to let you know that some people who live in my dorm, they're not allowed to come back right now just because it's so close to the union. Even though my dorm is like secure, it's fine. Nothing has happened. I just wanted to mention that I have friends who were nearby and they can't even get here.
Do you have like a window? Like, have you been able to look out and see anything
I do.
that's been happening?
I have a window. We've been able to see a lot since we're on the main road. We're the only building off of campus that is like, or on campus that is past like the main Tennessee Street Road. We can see Tennessee Street very clearly. We can actually see the Union, and so we've seen a crap ton of cop cars, and we've heard helicopters because there's helicopter surveillance going on right now. For what? There was somebody sunbathing outside, and I can't open my window, but my suite mates can open their window. So I walked through, and I was like, "Hey, can you tell this person sunbathing like that there's something going on?" And she heard. She went back inside, but I'm glad I got to tell her that and everything. But yeah.
All right, there you have it. Jake interviewing that Florida State University student who normally works in the Student Union building, and we understand that shooting occurred in or near the Student Union building, and some people, after they heard the shots, I was reading one person took a stool and went underneath the stool just trying to cover themselves from possibly a hail of bullets.
And you were talking earlier about some of the student accounts and some excellent reporting coming from the local media there in Tallahassee, and our Jake Stofan is on the way as well, but talked about how one student on campus survived the Parkland shooting.
Right.
And said, I cannot, and that's what the student, I cannot imagine going through something like this. Again, these mass shootings and incidents like this hitting really close to home for a lot of people. We talked about some of the numbers, over 500 mass shootings last year, according to the gun violence archive. And so just hearing from these students, that student also mentioning how they worked in the student union and they also had friends at the hospital and they were getting some bits and pieces of information. And then for her roommates and different people who are off campus, they're not allowed to come on the campus right now.
Yeah, so the students who then went to their dormitories afterwards or their fraternities or sororities at the time, they're staying there until they're allowed to leave, or people are allowed to go there to go ahead and visit with them. So once again, this shooting happened now about 2 hours and 45 minutes ago. So we're continuing to follow this, and there's still a very, very active scene around the FSU campus right now. Still going, since it's a large campus, a number of buildings, a number of students who hold themselves up in certain classrooms and buildings as well. Those officers trying to get them out safely. We're also understand that Mayor Lenny Curry, former Mayor Lenny Curry, we talked to him about the situation. We'll be hearing from him in just a bit as well.
Yeah, and another reminder, all Florida State Athletics home events through Sunday, April 20th have been canceled, and they're going to be giving updates on events scheduled for next week. At some point, they'll give updates on that, but all the home athletic events through Sunday at FSU are canceled.
Yeah. Some parents visiting their students at the time, some parents also going through student tours for maybe possible students going to class there in the summer. And we understand one man was with his daughter in the Student Union building when those shots rang out. He tried to get out as soon as he could. He encountered one locked door and finally made it out okay. And a number of students who were also on the school campus, maybe enjoying lunch on the grass out there. As soon as they heard those shots being fired, they left right away, left everything that they had, their backpacks, their phones, whatever they had, their lunch, everything on campus there, and then just took off for cover. So we're continuing to follow this story right now. Some more looks at the FSU campus right now. We also heard from some fathers, maybe we could, and some students, maybe we could go ahead and show people and they could hear some of the first account witnesses that were there. We'll try to get that racked up so you could hear that as well.
Some of that sound now.
My daughter was waiting at the table. We were looking at the menu, and I I couldn't believe it. Like, shots started, it was surreal. And people just started running. She got trampled over. We went through an exit door, ran down a hall, and all the doors were locked except one going up a flight of stairs to exit. And we didn't think that would be a good idea, but there was about 70 of us or 50 of us in that, and we were just like trapped, like
so when
felt
did you
trapped.
get out of the
And you heard that father who was on that tour. He talked about how about 50 of them were gathered in an area when the shooting happened. As Emily Turner jumps in to relieve Phil, who's been on the desk for a few hours now, as we continue to bring you breaking news coverage of this shooting on the campus of FSU, the second one since 2014. The shooting impacting the campus there. The all clear has not been given yet because they're going through that campus. There are thousands of people on that campus.
As you can imagine, I mean, it's such a fluid situation. One of the things that I wanted to make sure we've just gotten into our newsroom as an update, which adds some context to the situation, is that on FSU campus, they made this announcement yesterday. The Tallahassee Police Department did. Yesterday, they said they were going to be doing tactical apprehension and control team training exercise right there at campus. So yesterday, they told everyone they were going to be doing tactical training. They said, quote, during this training session, you may hear loud bangs, crashes, sirens, see officers with firearms displayed. So whether this was intentional timing or not, it certainly could be confusing. Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword. It could be confusing to students who maybe didn't take it seriously, knowing, oh, there's going to be this exercise. But in addition, the other side of that is there were officers who were already there, you know, not knowing that this was going to be not an exercise. This is not a drill.
Well, that lines up with some of the sound we've heard and some of the accounts we've been reading about how quickly people were able to get help, how quick the response was on campus. So that lines up with some of the accounts that we've been seeing.
And I mean, thank goodness for that. They go on to say, at the Tallahassee Police Department, training is a top priority. It helps us ensure the safety of our community and enables us to apprehend violent offenders or those who seek to cause harm to others. I mean, it's, you know, this was something they sent out yesterday, and how true those words really have become in this situation. That, thank goodness, you're right, that they were right there on the scene and prepared for that.
Another statement coming in, we've been getting responses from FAMU and from Tallahassee State, but UNF here in Jacksonville, a statement from the president there, Moaz Lamayam. He says, "Dear Osprey community, our hearts go out to Florida State University community as they navigate the tragic events at their student union today. Many of us have family, friends, and colleagues who attend or work at FSU, and I urge you to offer your support and check on them during this difficult time." The UNF president saying how he reached out to the FSU president to assure that we are here to help the FSU community in any way that we can, and that UNF also offering counseling services to any students who may need assistance and referring students to go to the Dean of Student Office Care Services, and the faculty as well. They can get help through the Employee Assistance Program. I mean, when you hear things like this that happen, I mean, you just get a chill in your bones, and everyone feels this. This is something, I mean, we've seen these scenes play out over and over, and this is something, because you think it happened there, it really can happen anywhere.
Well, and especially with how prolific social media is and the fact there's a camera everywhere now. I mean, if you think about it, I remember Columbine. That was really the first big one. But today's generation of college students grew up with this.
Yes.
And it was, you know, some different place, USA, each week. And so for them, I'm sure, whether you're at FSU or you know someone who's at FSU, if you're on UNF's campus, I'm sure that it is triggering in some regard either way, because it's like, well, gosh, when is this going to come to my school?
Yeah, and I also mentioned, and I'm looking at a tweet now from a father of one of the Parkland victims who died. There are Parkland school shooting survivors who go to school at FSU. And so you talk about just like kind of that repeated trauma, and whether you have been through one of these experiences, I think it is unnerving for a lot of people, as we've seen mass shootings play out all over the country, but especially when it comes to our children and, you know, on school campuses of any age, students of any age. It's tough to process.
Exactly, and one of the things too, because this is still such an active scene, we don't know what the situation is. We've been in contact with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office to kind of get their take on what this looks like. We'll be having someone come in from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office in studio to talk to us, to kind of walk us through what this looks like from a law enforcement perspective. What is the first thing you do? Do you lock it down?
Mm-hmm.
Do you who can kind of give us an inside look at what exactly Tallahassee police officers are dealing with right now?
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier before you got on set that FSU actually does an active shooter preparedness class, and part of what they go over, it's a 1-hour course, and part of what they go over is the law enforcement response, so that people know kind of what to expect, because we see you have the campus police, you have the local police, and you also have those federal resources that will swarm that campus, and any other partner agencies that want to, that can assist usually will. And so they'll be interesting to get that perspective from a local law enforcement officer kind of about what we can expect to be playing out on the FSU campus for hours and days to come.
Exactly, and we have a crew of our own right now on the way. Our own state and local government reporter, Jake Stofan, is in the car on the way to Tallahassee. Jake, what can you tell us about what you've been able to hear so far?
Well, you guys all heard the interview I obviously did with Madison there, who's from Fleming Island, my hometown, currently at FSU. She was very close to the student union, but according to her, she actually didn't hear any of this transpire. She had just walked by the student union about 30 minutes prior, and when she got back to her dorm, she got the text alerting her that there was a danger on campus. We're coming down Mahan Drive right now, so we're getting fairly near the campus. I can tell you, we just passed a state emergency response team truck, so it seems like not only is this going to be a law enforcement response, but also leveraging some of the emergency resources of the state as well. I'm hearing that we might be hearing from the Tallahassee Police Department and the other law enforcement agencies involved in this around 4 p.m. today. We have a location, but the time may change. I can't help but think when I was here previously, when I worked in Tallahassee, this is not the first mass shooting, even since the 2014 incident at FSU that's rocked this campus community. There was a shooting at a hot yoga studio back when I was working here that unfortunately took the lives of some FSU students. And I remember seeing the campus community come together in the aftermath of that. 3 people died. That was back in 2018. And it was a very emotional time. It was very hard for students to get through it, and that we're back here 8 years later, or 7 years later rather, dealing with what could be an even more devastating shooting in terms of the casualty count. It's hard to comprehend, and it's unfortunate that this is why we're coming back to Tallahassee right now.
It's a very unfortunate for that. In Tallahassee, it's a college town. It's a lot of people there when school is in session, but to have gone through that many incidents for that size of a community, that's just really heartbreaking. And you can just really hear it in Jake's voice, the heaviness of this. And you talk about the investigative component. There is a mental health component to this as well.
Absolutely.
And those resources, we've already seen FAMU talking about it, even here at home, UNF, and I'm sure more announcements will be made from FSU to make sure that students, faculty, anyone impacted by this will be able to get those resources to process this kind of tragic and devastating situation on a college campus.
Absolutely, and we're hoping to talk to former Mayor Lenny Curry here in just a moment. He's going to be calling in. He has his son is a sophomore. Oh, he is on the line right now. Mr. Curry, can you tell us a little bit, just what's gone through your head when you heard this? You have a son on campus there.
I do. I had just pulled in to have lunch at a restaurant, and my wife sent me a text that had the alert of an active shooter, and she let me know she couldn't get a hold of our son. She was trying to reach him via his phone, text messaging. Fortunately, when he was in middle school, I joined him on Snapchat because he's pretty quick on that, and I messaged him, and he got back to me right away and let me know that he was hunkered down in his apartment. Obviously, nightmare, not knowing what's happening, having a student on campus. And now I'm just sitting watching, wondering what's happening, and can't imagine what parents and families that either are victims or those that don't know even where their children are right now and heard from them.
Yeah, and we're so glad that your son, that you heard from him, that you were able to find that alternate way to hear from him, because that's a part of sometimes what happens in the chaos. So many people are trying to call out if they even have their phones. And Mayor Curry, I know you were in office in the aftermath of that 2014 shooting, and so fast forwarding a decade later, and to know that that community has experienced this again, what is your message to the FSU family and those in Tallahassee?
It's inexplicable that this is the kind of stuff that happens. I really don't have words, except that cannot even imagine what the families are going through. It's just pure evil. It's inexplicable, and it's a terrible way to be reminded how fragile life is.
And when you were talking to your son, I mean, did he give you any idea? I can only imagine how heavy the feeling is on and around campus and with his friends. I mean, did he give you any idea of what the, I don't want to say vibe, that feels too casual of a term, but what the scene feels like right now out there?
It kind of felt like he was in shock. He's a big guy, he's a tough guy, but he acknowledged he's in his apartment on lockdown, and he still was telling me he's still scared. So he's in a safe place, and so I can't imagine the students that were in the student union, that were around it, that were running. I mean, just so I heard you guys talking about the mental health aspect of this. I mean, this is just a tragedy, and it's one thing we've seen this stuff play out on the news and television over the years. It's when it's somewhat close to you, and when I say close to me, I simply have a kid there that is safe, but it got really real really fast.
Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about that moment? Your wife, former First Lady Molly Curry, she reaches out to you, can't get in touch with her son, and you finally hear from him and you can confirm that he's safe. Tell me about that moment you were able to call Molly and give her the news that you had made contact.
It's from extreme thinking of the worst. So elevated adrenaline, everything, fear, to, oh my God. He's not only is he safe, he's in his apartment. He's not even on campus right now.
Well, I'm just glad.
But I step back and I think, I mean, first thing our families, right? That's where we go. But now my son's safe, and because we're so close to this university, I can't imagine what the victims, their families are going through, and families that haven't heard from their children.
Yeah. And when you've been on campus out there, I mean, what is that part of campus, especially midday? I mean, I imagine that it's just full of people. What does that look like?
Oh, it's hustling, it's bustling. I will tell you that you reminded me, the first message my son sent me back was, he said, it's crazy right now. Active shooter on campus. Shots are flying everywhere.
Those words you never want to hear out of your kid's mouth.
I don't know if he heard the shots or if he's getting that from his friends, but that was his message to me.
Again, we are grateful that you were able to make contact and that your son is safe in his apartment, and we can just obviously hear your sympathy for those families who haven't heard or who may get some very upsetting news, for those faculty members and all those impacted as we now wait to get answers. You mentioned earlier that this is really inexplicable, but hopefully we'll get more insight from law enforcement as to why something like this would happen. Especially, students are winding down the semester, they're getting ready for the Easter holiday weekend. And for something like this to happen, especially during the height of the lunch hours, this is just so unfortunate and so tragic.
We live in a broken world.
Well,
and we should all try to be the good in it.
absolutely. Thank you so much. We so appreciate your time, and we're so glad that your family is safe and well, and we are obviously sending prayers to those who are otherwise still
Thank
wondering.
you.
Yeah, we hope to check back in with you later just to make sure, just see how your son is doing, because as you mentioned, this is a lot to process, and hopefully all of his friends and his loved ones there on campus are also safe. Thank you so much, Mr. Curry.
Prayers for all the families and gratitude to the law enforcement,
Absolutely.
Yes,
first
thank you.
responders.
And we are getting new information, new sound from students from the FSU campus just into our newsroom here at 3:06. Let's listen into what they had to say.
About 15 seconds before the actual shooting happened, a bunch of kids started running around screaming, and we're just like, oh, what's going on? And then probably maybe 10 gunshots happened, and everyone's like, oh my God.
I just hear gunshots, and I was like, oh, that's weird, but I didn't realize like how close they were. And I hear more. It was like 5 gunshots in a row, and everybody got up, looked at each other, and just started running.
I just tried to remain calm the entire time. It was kind of surreal what was happening. I didn't really think I'd ever be in a situation like this. You know, you always see this kind of stuff on the news, and you'd be like, how are things like this continue to be allowed and continue to happen? But I never thought I'd be in a classroom in the same kind of scenario.
People were going everywhere. Some went up like a maintenance elevator, some went up some staircases. We just kind of went in a corner and hid behind some trash cans, made a little fort out of plywood. And then I would say about 5-10 minutes later, cops came in, everyone had their hands up, they all checked us, and now we're here just wait and see what happens next.
And we're looking at a statement from the UNF president, Dr. Moaz Lamayam, saying our hearts go out to the Florida State University community as they navigate the tragic events at their student union. He talked about how many people have family, friends, and colleagues who attend or work at FSU. I urge you to offer your support and check on them during this difficult time. He also noted, Emily, that he reached out to the FSU president to offer their support. I want to point out Mayor Donna Deegan, we just heard from former Mayor Lenny Curry, Mayor Donna Deegan also tweeted a statement saying, I'm heartbroken to see the tragedy unfolding at FSU today. As an alum who also had a child at Florida State, my heart goes out to the families and students terrorized by this senseless act of violence. I'm continuing to monitor the news out of Tallahassee, and my prayers are with everyone there. That coming from Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan.
And just in the last 13 minutes, Florida A&M University has announced that it is canceling classes as a result of this. I mean, and we already knew, you were saying just a moment ago, Florida State canceled all their home athletic events, but at this point, just to give you an idea of how far-reaching it is, it's because it's just a few minutes away from FSU. So Florida A&M University, just minutes away, announced today that classes and student activities will be canceled for the rest of the day in response to the shootings, and employees have the option to work remotely for the rest of the day as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned the athletics. Georgia Tech, our sister station in Atlanta, WSB, reporting that Georgia Tech, the softball team, was actually on the way to Florida State for a game when this shooting happened. And they were scheduled to play Florida State in softball this weekend in Tallahassee. We don't know, the SB is not saying how far away the team had made it from Tallahassee, but they had not arrived on campus, so those students were not on campus at the time of the shooting. But yeah, the Georgia Tech softball team was planning to be there this weekend, and now obviously impacted by this. They're not allowing people on campus. The focus right now is getting people off that campus.
Absolutely. And another statement too, just 3 minutes ago, from Sheriff TK Waters, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, says, although we are not in the same city, the Jacksonville community is deeply connected to Florida State University. The men and women of JSO stand with the FSU shooting victims, students, teachers, administrators, and loved ones. This incident of senseless violence, a tragedy for all Floridians, cries out for justice as our law enforcement colleagues conduct their investigation. Our agency stands ready to support and assist. And the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is actually making someone available who is intimately aware of how these operations are handled from the very first moments all the way through, and we'll be hearing from him hopefully as soon as he can get here to the studio to kind of walk us through a little bit of what it is exactly Tallahassee police are dealing with right now.
An update that was posted in the last few minutes on the FSU Facebook page that they continue to shelter in place. The law enforcement was still actively clearing rooms on that main campus. Again, we learned about this around 12:20 or so. They are still actively clearing rooms on the main campus, and they're telling people to continue to shelter in place until law enforcement contacts you. If you need help, they're saying to call 911, or you can call the campus police at 850-644-1234. Also want to acknowledge we have our listeners on 104.5 WOKV who've also been following this coverage. Want to acknowledge them folks who are listening in who may have faculty, loved ones, students on this campus also impacted by this.
Yeah, I mean, and Jacksonville is so unique in the sense that we have such a huge community. You know, you're Florida State or you're Florida. I mean, the bulk, I feel like, of our rivalry is Florida State, and so it's such a huge community here. Whether you went there, you cheered for them, or you've got kids that go there, you know somebody who is impacted by what's happening on campus right now.
Or even people who went to Tallahassee State or FAMU, people who are just from that college community there in Tallahassee. So we're still efforting to hear from more law enforcement. We've heard from the FBI, Pam Bondi also putting out a statement, and we even heard from President Trump there at the White House, who was aware of the situation and mentioned how they expect to get more information, but the president is aware and will be briefed.
Right, and so for folks who are just joining us here at 311, let us walk you through kind of the timeline. The Associated Press has a great one that's out now, and they got to the scene on campus at 1:42. Of course, this began much earlier in the 12 o'clock hour, but as of 1:45, they said at least 6 people have been hospitalized. At 1:48 p.m., President Trump has been fully briefed. The governor responded at 1:58. Florida State canceled all of their home athletic events about an hour ago. About 15 minutes ago, A&M announced that they canceled classes. But Tanika, you can probably talk more about those first few moments of what we know happened on campus with regards to the shots fired.
Yeah, we heard from different students who were giving their accounts. Some of them described hearing 20 to 40 shots. Someone else described hearing about 12 and then a pause and then 12 to 15 more. We've been playing sound for you of a father who was on campus for a college tour when this all happened and how they were in the building, and it was about 50 to 70 of them kind of just huddled in place. You talked about that training exercise, which I think is important, that students were warned to expect to hear noise, to see law enforcement, and again, whether that factored into the shooters taking action today will probably, I'm sure, be a part of the investigation. But some students talked about how they opted to just run to their cars and try to get off campus. Others barricaded themselves and hid in whatever area that they were in. So we saw kind of a mix of reactions from people just trying to process what they were hearing in real time. And then, in those moments, you hope that you're going to make the right decision, but you're just doing what you think makes sense at the time to make it out alive. And so we saw the courtyard there with book bags, phones, shoes even, as people ran from that area trying to get away from the shots and the chaos.
And we heard from those students earlier, just a few moments ago, where one of them said he just knocked something over and put a piece of plywood up. I mean, he was just making a makeshift barrier, anything he could do to protect himself. We heard from Jake Stofan, who's on his way to Tallahassee now, talked to a young woman who usually works at the student union, who said she knew people who just put a stool over her head, because at that point you're just going to do whatever you can to try and put a barricade between yourself and harm.
Yeah, and we know law enforcement, as they mentioned, they're clearing the main campus, and this is a campus with tens of thousands of people on any given day. And they have a safe word that they're giving to the students as they clear the campus, armed with guns, which is standard protocol, because again, they have to make sure that any threats are neutralized. And we saw that video of the students walking out with their hands up, following those instructions of those officers as they work to just make sure they can get everyone to safety and make sure that everyone on the campus is accounted for.
And we're going to stay on top of this. We're working to get back in touch with Jake Stofan, who again is on his way to Tallahassee, to FSU. He spent quite a bit of time in Tallahassee working there during the first shooting in 2014. Yep, 2014. And can give us a good perspective on that. You already heard from former Mayor Lenny Curry, who's got a son who goes to FSU, is there right now. Luckily, he was able to get in touch with him, and he's safe, but there are plenty of parents, I'm sure, who maybe have not been able to get in touch with their children, and I just, my heart goes out to everybody who's involved. I mean, it's especially the victims, but even if you're adjacent or you have a kid that goes there, you can only imagine just how your stomach drops.
My stomach dropped when I saw the alerts coming in, and I was like, okay, I wasn't home, and I was like, I got to get home so I can head to work. But I just replayed. We had come to Jacksonville that August, and that November, the shooting at the library at FSU happened that same year. And so to see that something like this happened again, even the shooting that happened at the high school in Texas this week, anytime you see those types of things, you just take that breath. You have that moment where, like you said, you do feel it in your stomach, and your thoughts immediately go to all the people involved and those who are hurt and those whose lives will forever be changed. You mentioned Jake was headed to Tallahassee. He was pulling in to the city, getting to the closest vantage point that he can. He's live for us now. And Jake, we can see some activity there behind you.
Yeah, still a lot of police vehicles, even an ambulance really far in the distance if you take a look. So it's unclear whether there could still be people injured on campus or if that's just there as a bit of a precautionary measure. You can see crossing the street, walking around, students kind of slowly trickling off of campus. We're here off of Tennessee Street, just adjacent to the campus near the Westcott entrance. I'm told by TPD that there will be a press briefing here. That is tentatively set for 4:30 p.m. So we'll be sure to bring you any updates and try to confirm some of these details, not only regarding how many shooters were involved in this, but also how many people were injured and whether there were any casualties in terms of people who lost their lives. I know we've been mentioning that this is the second time that FSU has experienced a mass shooting just within the last 10, 11 years. The tragic shooting in 2014 that injured 3 different people. One of those students actually ended up being paralyzed, and of course, as I was mentioning earlier, there was also the hot yoga shooting that took the lives of 3 people, including at least 1 FSU student. So we haven't gotten a chance to talk to any of the students yet. You can see they're kind of on the other side of the street, so that's going to be the next thing we do before we head to where that press briefing is slated and we get our first detailed description from officials on what transpired here today, what led up to it, what the motive potentially could have been. That may be a little early at this point, but we'll be sure to update you on air and online as we learn all the new information and get new details on this.
I mean, you can see this huge, heavy police presence behind you, and I know you haven't had a lot of time to talk to anybody, but I imagine it's a pretty somber presence there right now.
Absolutely. I mean, you aren't seeing smiles on the faces of any of these students who are walking off campus. People gathered over here in the Starbucks parking lot, seemingly texting family members, I'm sure, letting them know what their status is. Nobody's talking. It's everyone seems pretty upset and distraught by what happened, and it's just horrible.
Some new information coming in. I just saw a tweet from FSU Alert. It says law enforcement has neutralized the threat. Please avoid the student union, Bellamy, HCB classroom building, Rovetta A&B, Moore Auditorium, Shaw Pepper, the Hike House, and Caraway, as they are still considered an active crime scene. It goes on to say, I'm opening this up, I apologize. It says that individuals who may have witnessed anything of value should call 850-891-4987. Again, I'll read it again. The FSU Alert. Law enforcement has neutralized the threat. Please avoid the student union, Bellamy, HCB classroom building, Rovetta A&B, Moore Auditorium, Shaw Pepper, the Hike House, and Caraway, as they are considered an active crime scene. Individuals are free to move about other areas of the campus. Those who may have witnessed the shooting, witnessed anything of value rather, should call 850-891-4987. That being sent out from the FSU Alert system just here in the last 60 seconds that the threat has been neutralized. So I expect to see some of that activity start to shift on campus in terms of people being able to get out of those buildings and hopefully get in touch with their loved ones. Students have been asked to go to the Donald L. Tucker Civic Center, or folks who are curious about their loved ones, go to the Donald L. Tucker Civic Center to reunite. But again, The threat has been neutralized, according to law enforcement there at FSU.
And we'll try and get that phone number up on our screen so that anybody who might be passing along information to folks in Tallahassee who might want that information to call can do so. Is Jake still with us live, or has he gone? Okay, great. Jake, those buildings that you were just talking about, are you familiar with any of these buildings? And I mean, we know what the student union is, but what else was there?
Bellamy, the HCB classroom, the Rovetta, the Moore Auditorium, Shaw, Pepper, any of those sound familiar to you or from your perspective on campus, because those are still considered an active crime scene?
You know, I wish I could say that I'm super familiar with all of those buildings. I did live here for 5 years, but I didn't go to college here. I ran around a lot, but it's been a couple of years since I've been back on campus. I can tell you we're about 2 blocks away from the student union, so we're pretty close to there. And they obviously have the road blocked off, you know, several blocks down the road. So, you know, it's a very large crime scene, and just based on how many different buildings you're talking about being encompassed in this crime scene, I think really speaks to, you know, how large of an area that, you know, this could have been spreading throughout. I know there's been some suggestion that perhaps there were multiple gunmen, so, you know, perhaps it's not just so isolated to a single building like we've seen in other situations like this. Back in that 2014 shooting, you know, it was just in the library. So this speaks to potentially a much larger type of shooting incident.
We actually have a director, Brian Vendetti, who is an alum, and he mentioned how those buildings are right there in the area near the student union. And we talked about some of that chaos where people were running, and sources telling us that there were potentially 2 gunmen. So, but we're being told that those buildings are kind of all in that concentrated area that they are describing as an active crime scene.
But really, the key thing to take away right now that has just happened is that they have announced that the threat is neutralized. Now, we'll find out what that means more specifically, I'm sure, in the coming moments, hours, as this all unfolds, but that's the critical thing, because now what they've done is they're turning a corner from an active shooter emergency crisis moment that's developing to now this is now an investigation.
Yeah, they can shift into that investigative mode and keeping students away, keeping faculty and people away from those areas. This is because this is a crime scene and they have to preserve evidence that will be critical going forward in this investigation as they work to figure out a motive. Where, you know, we hope to get more information from investigators about who was involved and if they had any ties to the actual college campus.
Well, and the reason they gave a phone number for folks to call who may have seen anything or may know anything is one of the things they're going to do is try to piece together step by step what happened as this unfolded. I mean, we've heard multiple accounts from students. They heard, 15 shots, they heard 40 shots, but what you kind of do is you create a patchwork from everybody's information to put a story together. This is exactly how this unfolded, so that they can, really figure out what went down.
Yeah, who knew what when. A lot of times once these things emerge and we start to learn more about the suspects involved, then you start getting more information and a better picture maybe about that motive. Want to give that number to you all, and hopefully we can get that up on the screen at some point. This is information from the FSU alerts. That number for individuals who may have witnessed anything of value, they should call 850-891-4987. And again, this is law enforcement asking for information, as Emily said, as they take that investigative turn. That number is 850-891-4987. The number on your screen now is the number that they're telling people to call for information about their loved ones or about the shooting. So two kind of separate things are funneling folks to say, hey, it's hard to get in touch. We even heard former Mayor Lenny Curry talking about it was a bit difficult to get in touch and get information. So the number you see here is for if you want information. Yes. The number I just gave you, the 850-891-4987, is for if you have any information that you need to pass along to law enforcement.
Exactly, and we will be speaking to our very own law enforcement. Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is going to be sending someone to help us kind of understand from that perspective what exactly those moments in that crisis were like, or what they do in those moments to then what happens next, because this is going to be a headline for days or weeks to come as this new information comes out of who did this, why did they do this, how in the world did this happen?
Yeah, and right here as the school year is winding down on a busy day as we approach a holiday weekend, and you talked about so many people who are touched by this in some way. And I'm just just scanning through Twitter. We're not reporting every single thing we see on Twitter, but so many people who are saying, oh, my sister went there, or my such and such works there, or this person was headed to campus. And it's just amazing to see people who, from all over the country who have these ties or these stories or this connection to the campus.
I mean, it is. It's a huge university. It's an iconic university, especially within the state of Florida. It's well known. And so this is not just a Florida, it's not just a Tallahassee story. It's not just a Florida story. This is a national story, especially, you know, with the police presence that we've seen and that we are seeing as that continues to develop.
I know earlier we were able to get some sound bites of students kind of back to back walking us through kind of what they experienced. Do we have that ready? And if so, are we able to kind of hear from some of those students who were able to kind of get out of the buildings they were in or kind of get to a more isolated place? They were kind of just on standby waiting to figure out what the next steps were. But do we have that sound? If so, let's listen to that now.
About 15 seconds before the actual shooting happened, a bunch of kids started running around screaming. And we're just like, oh, what's going on? And then probably maybe 10 gunshots happened and everyone's like, oh my God.
I just hear gunshots and I was like, oh, that's weird, but I didn't realize like how close they were. And I hear more, it was like 5 gunshots in a row and everybody got up, looked at each other and just started running.
I just tried to remain calm the entire time. It was kind of surreal what was happening. I didn't really think I'd ever be in a situation like this. You know, you always see this kind of stuff on the news and you'd be like, how are things like this continue to be allowed and continue to happen? But I never thought I'd be in a classroom in the same kind of scenario.
Nervous, I'm scared for my friends, I'm making sure I'm checking up on them, and I just hope everyone's okay and this gets handled soon. I was parking my car, walking back, and as I was walking back, I see these group of girls crying, really upset, walking back from the student union, told me they heard gunshots, and they just ran and came back to their apartment where I was walking to.
Hearing those different accounts from students. We've also been keeping an eye on the local media there in Tallahassee. Tallahassee Democrat doing some excellent reporting there as well. And they noted, as Jake mentioned, we're expecting to hear from law enforcement and officials around 4 or 4:30 in this incident. They're also reporting that the Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare Center is mentioning 6 patients, including 1 that's critical and 5 that are serious. That we hope to get more information on the folks who were hurt in all this. And when you have a situation like this with that many people, you know, we've seen from different injuries can vary. Not everyone is always a gunshot victim. Sometimes you can just get hurt in the chaos of trying to escape.
Well, I mean, people were leaving their shoes on the grass and their backpacks, everything you can only imagine. I mean, there's any number of injuries that would be adjacent to or kind of a ripple effect of people just trying to get away, getting out of there. And then so just to walk you guys through the timeline again, this the shots rang out in the 12 o'clock hour just before about 12:30 is when that first began. It happened right near the student union in a busy lunch hour in the middle of the day. It was beautiful, you know, so you can only imagine the crowd that was there.
Yeah.
And then things began to unfold from there. As you heard students saying, they heard multiple gunshots. One saying he heard up to, he said 40, right?
Yeah, 30, about 30 or 40 shots. And which lines up, we've heard people say they heard them in bursts. Some of them just describe the total amount. As far as the campus, we know that the athletics that were planned at home through Sunday are canceled. Classes there canceled through tomorrow for sure. FAMU nearby also announcing that they have canceled class for today. Employees there can work remotely as well. And they have students who do they have a partnership with the engineering program at FSU. So they were telling those students that, you know, once they leave FSU's campus, they can't return. So the impact's kind of rippling around the city of Tallahassee.
But then the biggest development when it comes to the shooting itself is that in the last, half hour, Tallahassee police announced that FSU police announced that the shooter or the threat has been neutralized. So at this point, they will be shifting gears. But in the meantime, the campus is not just back open.
No.
They've said there are at least 5 buildings that they don't want anybody to go to. They're all buildings that are very close to, surrounding, or adjacent to the student union. So their crime scene, where they'll be for, I'm sure, hours and hours, is centralized around the student union, and they don't want anybody anywhere close to that as they start to investigate.
Yeah, and the goal initially was, as you mentioned, making sure that threat was neutralized, but then getting students, faculty, and staff safely off campus and ushering them obviously away from those crime scene areas. We saw video of students waiting to get on a bus. Even some of those students you just heard from talking about how they were just kind of, they were out of the buildings, but they were just kind of standing by waiting for those instructions. In the last 20 minutes or so, we spoke to former Jacksonville Mayor Lenny Curry, who has a son there. He talked about the moment that his wife reached out to him. He was headed to lunch, and that his wife reached out to him with the text showing the alert about an active shooter, and that she couldn't reach their son. So let's hear from former Mayor Lenny Curry a little bit from our conversation with him.
The first message my son sent me back was, he said, "It's crazy right now. Active shooter on campus. Shots are flying everywhere. Nightmare, not knowing what's happening, having a student on campus."
And thankfully, in his case, he said his son didn't respond to his mom's text, but he had followed him on Snapchat. He was able to reach him there. His son told him he was safe. He was there at his apartment, but still really shaken up at the news of what had happened at his campus. Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan, she also put out a statement on Twitter saying that she was heartbroken, see the tragedy unfolding as an FSU alum and someone who also had a child to attend the university, that her heart goes out to the families of students terrorized by this senseless act of violence, and that she would be continuing to also monitor the news out of Tallahassee, and that she was praying for everyone there too.
And UNF, as you can imagine, the entire Florida University family, because they're so closely tied, is affected by this. UNF sent out a statement as well. We can put up on your screen from the president of UNF, and I can pull it up here in just a minute. It's going to take me a second, but it says, let's see, our hearts go out to the Florida State University community as they navigate the tragic events at their student union today. Many of us have family, friends, and colleagues who attend or work at FSU. I urge you to offer your support and check on them during this difficult time. I did reach out to FSU President McCullough to assure him we are here to help with the FSU community in any way that we can. UNF counseling services in the meantime are available for anyone who needs assistance. Student resources are available through the Dean of Students Office. Care services and additional resources for faculty and staff are available through UNF's Employee Assistance Program. And you don't have to be there for that shooting for this to affect you. We were talking about the impact of how mass shootings, school shootings, especially this generation of, I don't want to say kids, but young adults,
they've lived through this time and time again.
And you were saying that there are
Parkland students that go to the school, and a father of one of the young ladies who was killed in Parkland talked about that she had friends who were survivors who were there on campus and having to kind of relive this again and the trauma that's associated with that.
Yeah, and Jake Stofan, who is in Tallahassee right now working to talk to students, then will eventually be at that press conference that is set to happen at 4 o'clock. Talked to a young lady who works in the student union who said she had friends who were they put a stool over her head, that people were making makeshift barriers. They were doing whatever they could because you're scared. You want to keep yourself safe. It's worth bringing up again. I know we've talked about this already, and in a way is a blessing, really, that the Tallahassee Police Department had training planned today. Yesterday, they sent out a press release to people that said, hey, we're going to be on campus. I'm going to try and pull that one up. But they said, we'll be on campus. It's just for training. We just want you to know that the Tactical Apprehension and Control Team, I mean, it couldn't have been a more perfect team to have been there. We'll be conducting a training exercise there. During this training session, you may hear loud bangs, crashes, sirens, and see officers with firearms displayed. And so they were right there.
Yeah, and the question is this something that the suspects took advantage of? because it's one of those things where you think about, even now, if we were to hear sounds, your brain doesn't necessarily register that you're in the middle of a shooting.
Right.
It takes a moment, especially you're on your college campus in the middle of the day. And so I'm sure that will be a question that law enforcement will be asked or will address, is if this training situation where you're told, hey, you'll hear loud pops, or hey, you'll see law enforcement, if they took advantage of this.
Exactly.
Or if this was just an unfortunate set of circumstances. I'm sure those questions will be asked, and very, very valid questions to ask. So many messages online with people just offering their prayers to the FSU campus. You talked about earlier, like a lot of the rivalries, people are saying none of that matters. We're all united right now in this time of tragedy. So we're standing by. We're expecting to hear from law enforcement probably in the next 30 minutes to 1 hour.
Well, you're talking in Tallahassee?
Yes. We're hoping to hear from them in the next 30 minutes to 1 hour. Our Jake Stofan is there on the ground, so we will have our camera there to bring you whatever briefing that we get, but we're also, you've made contact with someone here at JSO to offer us some perspective, especially now that they've shifted from the threat being neutralized to the investigation phase.
Right, that's why I've been looking at my phone. We'll be talking to Lieutenant Scott Ramage. He's a former SWAT officer. He trains active shooter scenarios and is currently on his way here. We're very grateful for JSO to make him available to talk to us, because he can give us that perspective of, what do you do when you train for this? What do the first moments look like? How, as an officer, do you respond to that? And then, again, as you are turning the corner, as they are now, from an active shooter to an active investigation, what are the things that you need to do to lay the groundwork for a solid case? Because it's a long game. It's not just making sure everyone's safe, that's first and foremost, but then at the end of the day, or end of the year, or however much further down the road, there is a justice component to this, a law enforcement legal component to that.
Yeah, and obviously, and then on the campus with tens of thousands of people working through all those different scenarios to keep people safe while trying to figure out who's who is the threat. I know even after they had the shooting there in 2014, morning anchor Shay Simon, she went to FAMU and she was mentioning how so many things did change as a result. We see this happen. Something happens in terms of gun violence, and then there might be some kind of security changes, and we've even seen it in our local schools. But she talked about different things changing, IDs being required, or fences, or different protocols, or security measures to harden campuses that were put in place. And those are all things that law enforcement also have to train for and incorporate, and then try to educate people about what to do when these things happen.
Well, I mean, the poster child situation of that is maybe not the right language, but the Parkland did that. I mean, after Parkland and the shooting there, state laws changed. I mean, you were required to have a school resource officer or a police officer on every campus. We saw metal detectors go in on campuses, and I mean, it was a drastic change.
It was.
In direct response to such a terrible tragedy. What do you do on a college campus? It's different, right? You don't have one controlled points of entry as you do with a full school, but certainly events like this are a catalyst for change in communities and with law.
Yeah, and with mindsets as well. And we've also been mentioning, as we've been on air with you throughout this coverage, that mental health component. A lot of the surrounding schools, even UNF, offering counseling services to people who may be impacted by this, and employees, but not just limited to students, people just taking advantage of having someone to talk to, because this is a lot.
I mean, it's important, yeah.
It is, even as journalists, us having to consume this and share this information with you and download a lot of this information and details. It's a lot for anybody to kind of process, especially a lot of us were still coming off of hearing about the school shooting in Texas that just happened a few days ago.
I know.
Wrapping your minds around that happening.
I sit here and think about it, maybe even as early as tonight or tomorrow, the headlines we'll be talking about are announcing the names of the people who were injured or may have died or who were involved, and who they are in those stories. And those are so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
For us who don't even know them, but I can only imagine what the FSU community and especially those families are going through.
Yeah, for
right
sure,
now.
for sure. And families waiting still, some, to hear back. You have some new information
Yeah,
now.
the University of Florida president sent out a tweet that says, I join everyone at the University of Florida in sending our most caring thoughts and deepest sympathies to the Florida State University family. Our hearts go out to everyone who has been affected by the shootings and their loved ones. I mean, this is just one of those moments where, you know, Florida State's a rivalry game on Thanksgiving weekend. Who cares?
Nobody.
Who cares if you're orange and blue or you're garnet and gold? Everybody is garnet and gold right now. Everybody. Because a tragedy like this is so far-reaching.
And even, yeah, you mentioned that FAMU had their tweet saying stay 850 strong. Just that sense of, you know, like you said, community that we see building and emerging when things like this happen.
And they recognized that this is affecting their students as well and just canceled classes and were like, just go home.
Yeah, absolutely. And Emily, let's reset for people who are just joining us. We have been following for now more than 3 hours a shooting that occurred on the campus of Florida State University in Tallahassee, where we have confirmed that there are injuries, people taken to the local hospital there that has a trauma unit in that area. And sources also told us that there were 2 shooters and that at least one of them was in custody and that one was dead. And we're standing by to get an update around 4 or 4:30 from officials there, but we've also been hearing from folks and getting reaction from students at that campus.
And the timing of this really began in the heart of the lunch hour at the student union, when you can only imagine how many students and young adults are just milling around, eating lunch, studying, or just taking a break. So just before 12:30 is when the first reports of shots rang out. Students say they heard anywhere from a few shots to up to 30. As you can imagine, it must have been absolutely horrifying and very scary. And there are scenes from campus where, I mean, people they left shoes, cell phones, backpacks, and they just ran. Others who were inside the student union we've heard from put a stool over their head or put a piece of plywood up and hid behind it, anything they could to just, in that moment, make sure that they were as safe as they could be. And one of, you know, the other, whether it's just fate, good timing, or a blessing, the Tallahassee Police Department announced that they had yesterday announced they had plans to do tactical training today in this area. And they told students and folks to be prepared for, you know, a bunch of officers with guns. And thank goodness they were there. That it was not a drill. Today, a drill became reality in the most heartbreaking way.
Yeah, we heard from a guy who said that he saw someone who had been shot in the pelvic area, but that shortly after, someone was there to offer them help. And also, the threat has been neutralized. That coming from FSU. In the last about 23 minutes ago, they tweeted that, and also the Tallahassee Police Department did also tweet that the campus has been secured and that multiple law enforcement agencies remain on the scene for this ongoing investigation. Also noting that that student union and those surrounding buildings, that area is considered an active crime scene. So they're telling people just to stay away from that area, not to return to that area. They are busing students right now to the Reunification point, which is at the Donald L. Tucker Civic Center, and a briefing is set for 4:30. We're going to bring that to you live, and they're also going to have it on the Tallahassee Facebook page. So that's the biggest news that has come out of this in the last few minutes, is that the threat has been neutralized, and they're right now just working to secure that crime scene, which is relatively large there around that student union and those surrounding buildings.
Right, student union, Bellamy, HCB classroom building, Rivetta A and B, the Moore Auditorium, Shaw, Pepper, Hecht House, and Caraway. They, as of 3:20, said when they announced that the neutralized the threat, quote unquote, and that individuals are free to move around other areas of campus, but those are off limits because at this point, as we've discussed, what has become a developing situation with an active shooter now transitions into an investigation where they try to figure out what happened and why and who, all those serious questions that will take time to answer, but I'm sure everyone is wondering.
Yeah, and with this campus having experienced a shooting back in 2014 there at the library, a lot of differences though. That one happened around midnight, so wasn't as much foot traffic, not a lot of people there at the time, but 3 people were shot, and that gunman was shot and killed. in that case, and that did prompt a lot of security changes there at the campus of FSU. But as I said earlier, if you are a faculty member or an employee and you've been there since November of 2020, you've lived through 2 now on that campus.
And there are students that we've spoken to or that we've talked to who lived through Parkland and survived one catastrophic mass shooting, you know, as formative teenagers, to now have to live through something like this in your college years. And that's why the mental health component of this is so important. That's why it's not just FSU who's saying, look, we've got counseling.
Everyone.
I mean, UNF is offering it because you think, oh, it could have been me. When is it going to be the next insert campus school here?
Location, yeah, no, for sure. And you even heard when we interviewed former Mayor Lenny Curry, whose son attends FSU, but he's safe in his apartment. I was kind of trying to take notes, and he described it as inexplicable and a terrible way to be reminded of how fragile life is. And you could just even hear, even though he knew his son was safe, you could just even hear in his voice that he still was a bit unsettled, and especially those agonizing moments when they didn't hear from him and couldn't reach him.
Right. I mean, even it doesn't matter how many minutes it was that many minutes too long. To not know if your child is safe is, I mean, I can't imagine what any of these parents are going through.
We're expecting to get that update, though, from police at 4:30. We're going to continue to stay on air. We have a number up right now on our screen for FSU Counseling Services, 850-644-8255. The school already making those resources available to students as they just kind of navigate this sensitive and really devastating time.
Yeah, in just the last 14 minutes ago, actually, FSU did announce that through their alert system that the lockdown has been lifted. So, you know, we already talked about the active crime scene and where folks are not allowed to go, but otherwise they are free to move around campus, which, you know, I imagine you can offer a collective sigh of relief for that part to be over. And now we begin the long, grueling, excruciating portion of figuring out what is the status of these victims, what happened, who are the suspects, why in the world would you do this, how did this happen?
How did this even come about? Yeah. Jake Stofan is in Tallahassee on the ground. He's going to be shifting over to get to that briefing, but he did talk to another student, so here's some new sound. Let's listen.
My one friend was in the building on the floor in the dark, you know, waiting to like get the all clear. Her doors didn't even lock. They didn't know what was going on. But no, I'm very lucky to have all my friends accounted for and know that everyone's okay.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about parents, but there are thousands of students that are on campus there. You don't keep tabs of everybody at every moment of time. So who knew? Or did you want? Were you in the student union or not? And so I imagine there's quite a bit of scrambling, which is why they have that safe location for everybody to go to as a regroup moment. Like if you are looking for somebody,
that's where you go.
That's where you go.
And they're busing students away from the campus area to the Civic Center. That's what's happening right now. Those are the efforts that have been going on. We had some video of the students getting on the buses. They were standing by, a lot of them on their phones, just kind of waiting in line to get to the buses, to get to that Civic Center site. And when you think about it, the college experience, I mean, this is something that
this is not
what you plan for, and you become family. You know, it's that close-knit experience. Even on a big campus, you have those people. I mean, for her to be able to say she's fortunate that all her friends were accounted for, you know, and being able to hear from them. I mean, I'm relieved for her, but I mean,
how many other group chats still have unanswered texts?
And those were some of the conversations I was seeing on social media, like parents having group chats, the students having group chats, people trying to, you know, like you said, account for everyone and make sure people were safe.
Well, and when we heard from Jake Stofan live earlier when he finally made it there, first off, I mean, you could see, I won't even call it a ghost town, but there weren't very many people there. It was packed with law enforcement, like all down the road. They had full barricades out. At that point, they hadn't announced that the threat had been neutralized. But over his shoulder at a gas station at a Starbucks, he said there was a group of students who were just huddled together looking at their cell phone, and you can only imagine the stress and anxiety that they were dealing with.
And that's a main thoroughfare there, Tennessee Street, I believe. And to see that without the typical traffic, there's, like you said, Starbucks, there's a lot of activity that happens there on that stretch, and just to see it blocked off with nothing but law enforcement, that's an eerie scene, and that's something that's going to stay with people for some time. We have some sound we're going to play from a parent who was on campus when this happened.
Yeah, it was about noon exactly. That was an hour from when I had gotten home from my class, which was in the EOAS building, or that Ocean and Atmospheric Sciences building, which was right next to the Union. So I had walked on Tennessee Street, the main road, back to my dorm about like 30 minutes prior to that text. And then we've just been huddled in my dorm. I've been talking to my suite mates back there who kind of have people they know who work at the hospitals, and they've been giving us information. But so far, all that I've heard from the university is that the active shooter was happening and that we need to shelter in place, but all the other information we've had to get from other people.
So you didn't hear any gunshots necessarily or anything like that told you something was awry? It was the text that came through?
Yeah, I haven't personally heard any gunshots. It must have happened after I got home from my class at around 11:20 or so, but I did hear from people who did hear some things that were around the same area.
Do I understand right that you actually work in the student union?
I do. I work on the third floor. It's the Student Orgs and Involvement Office. I've texted everyone who works in that office, and everyone has been evacuated by police. They're all fine. But I very well could have been in the office today.
I mean, how are you processing this? I mean, like you said, you were there 30 minutes prior to presumably this all taking place, and I'm sure you're very concerned about your friends and whether anybody might have been hurt in this.
Thankfully, everyone I've reached out to has been fine, and no one that I know has known anyone who's been impacted by this, or that we've seen videos of and everything. Honestly, for a while, since we didn't know anything, it kind of felt unreal, as it so often does, because you're not seeing anything, no one's giving you any information. But just recently we've been able to log onto social media and see videos of like people lying bloody on the sidewalk, and it's like there's one video of someone filming and there's some lady covered in blood and there's blood on the sidewalk, and that's the same stretch of sidewalk that I take every morning to walk to my job or to my class, and that was very jarring. That made me genuinely very sick to my stomach, and it's a very unfortunate. I don't have the words to express how horrible this is. But personally, thankfully, no one I know has been personally impacted. Everyone I know has either been evacuated from where they were or were very far away to begin with. I did have a friend who was walking to his place of work today. Thankfully, he also didn't work today, so he wasn't already back there, but he was walking also to the Union because there's a Panera Bread in there, and he works at Panera, and people turned him away before they crossed the street and told him to go back home. But yeah, there's a lot of people I know who could have very easily been in the middle of it.
I mean, I know it's maybe cliche, but I mean, did you ever imagine when you went to college this year that you would find yourself in this situation?
Personally, I've never found myself in anything close to this. There have been, in middle school, we had drills, and then we had one actual thing where it's like in the neighborhood nearby, someone had a gun. So we huddled for a couple hours, but I've never gone through anything like this. My friend who works in the Union as well, he mentioned today that he had been through something similar. He'd been in a mall on Mother's Day because he's from Miami. It was in Miami that got shot up. And so to him, it's like he would have never guessed it would have happened on campus at a university, but he's gone through similar things. It's just a shame.
Madison, are you from Jacksonville originally?
I'm from just south of Jacksonville, Fleming Island.
Oh, okay. That's where I'm from as well. So I think that's how moms got contacted and connected.
Yeah.
Madison, I'm thankful to hear that you're okay and that your friends are okay. You have my phone number. If you hear anything, if you're able to let me know when they get you out of the dorms and you're kind of given the all clear, please let me know, just so I can kind of keep everybody updated and make sure that you're okay and everybody else is okay that you're around.
Good.
I'm gonna let you get back to it. I'm sure that your phone's blowing up with your family and friends and everybody else trying to make sure you're okay. So I'll let you get back to letting them know and keeping them in the loop.
Yeah. Okay, if you're curious, I just wanted to let you know that
Yeah.
some people who live in my dorm, they're not allowed to come back right now just because it's so close to the union. Even though my dorm is like secure, it's fine. Nothing has
Yeah.
happened. I just wanted to mention that I have friends who were nearby and they can't even get here.
Do you have like a window? Like, have you been able to look out and see anything
I do.
that's been happening?
I have a window. We've been able to see a lot since we're on the main road. We're the only building off of campus that is like, or on campus that is past like the main Tennessee Street Road.
Yeah.
We can see Tennessee Street very clearly. We can actually see the Union, and so we've seen a crap ton of cop cars, and we've heard helicopters because there's helicopter surveillance going on right now. For what? There was somebody sunbathing outside, and I can't open my window, but my suite mates can open their window. So I walked through, and I was like, "Hey, can you tell this person sunbathing like that there's something going on?" And
Yeah.
she heard. She went back inside, but I'm glad I got to tell her that and everything. But yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a student that Jake got to talk to as he was driving to Tallahassee. He's on the ground now. He's going to be standing by for that briefing at 4:30. Emily, I want to point out too, the FSU alert system, they had mentioned that the threat was neutralized. They sent out another alert reminding people about those buildings being closed. Right around that student union, Bellamy, the HCB classroom, the Rosetta A and B, the Moore Auditorium, Shaw Pepper, the Hecht House, and Caraway. And they're saying, don't come to those buildings to try to get your personal property right now. You're free to move about other areas of the campus, but don't try to go to those buildings at the student union, around the student union, because that is an active crime scene. So they're telling people, they put out another notice telling people to not try to come to those buildings. And they are also reminding people, if you have witnessed anything of value to investigators, to call 850-891-4987. But just reminding students or faculty, just don't come back to that area to try to get anything, because that's a part of a crime scene. And they have to collect evidence, they have to preserve evidence, and they have to make sure that area is sealed off and not allow access.
And if you think about it, that in an age of cell phone reliance, like that could maybe be why you haven't heard from someone, because it's sitting in a grassy plot somewhere and they can't get back to get it. And that's why it's so important for folks to go to the Civic Center. Like that is where they're telling people to go if you are looking for someone or you need someone, because they have all sorts of services there too.
Yeah.
But that's a place where, like, look, this is our emergency meeting point if you need to be in touch with somebody, because they may not have their cell phone. And who has, I mean, certainly I don't know any 20-year-olds who by choice would have a landline. So, you know, if you want to get in touch with someone, that's the place to go.
Go to the Civic Center. But again, that active crime scene is they have secured the campus, allowing students and people, faculty to move around other areas, but just that focus around the student center where this shooting was concentrated is the area that they're keeping people away from and just asking people to stay away. So I just wanted to make sure I put that out there as we prepare to reset with our continuing breaking coverage of this shooting that happened at Florida State University just around lunchtime at the Student Union. A lot unfolding now as we move into the investigation portion of this.
The threat has been neutralized at this point. We are moving into the investigation phase, and in the next half hour, Tallahassee police say they will be speaking to us about 4:30. You can catch that live. Please stay with us with the latest.
Live at 4, Fox 30 Action News Jax begins with breaking news.
People running in fear after a mass shooting on the Florida State University campus.
Scared for my friends and making sure I'm checking up on them, and I just hope everyone's okay.
This is Action News Jax at 4 and continuing coverage of the mass shooting happening at FSU. I'm Emily Turner.
I'm Tanika Hughes.
And let's get you right to the very latest on what we know. There are several victims. We are still working to confirm exact numbers, but Tallahassee Memorial confirmed at least 6 people in the hospital. They say 1 is in critical condition, 5 others are in serious condition. FSU confirmed the threat, however, is neutralized, and police are about to give their first update on this shooting. That should happen at about 4:30. We have a crew on the scene. We will take you there live as soon as that begins.
And we do have live team coverage for you from Tallahassee to local colleges. We are breaking down what we know and what comes next. We're going to start at the scene there in Tallahassee with Action News Jax, Jake Stofan.
He's live in Tallahassee. And Jake, you've been there for about an hour now. What have you been able to see and hear from people?
Well, students are obviously kind of having a hard time describing exactly what they went through. It's difficult to imagine going through something so terrifying, and given how raw all this is, I think they're still trying to process it, obviously. Now, thankfully, as you mentioned, the immediate danger has passed, but we're soon hoping to learn what exactly transpired here and hopefully why.
And I know that FSU will come back from this, but it's something, we'll never get over, but we'll get through it, I guess.
You're taking a live look here at the Civic Center. That is where students have been instructed to go to be reunified with their family and their loved ones. We are standing here in front of the Florida State Conference Center. That is where Tallahassee Police Department is expected to give us an update and hopefully explain some of the details of what occurred here today, the scope of it, how many people were injured, and hopefully no fatalities. Well, that'll be determined here in the next 30 minutes when that press conference gets underway. We'll be sure to bring it to you live on air and online right here on Action News Jax. For local coverage you can count on live in Tallahassee, I'm Jake Stofan, Action News Jax.
A lot of reaction, as you can imagine, from students and parents who are in that area. One witness was actually inside the student union and told our sister station what he saw.
People started rushing to the back and everyone just started running out of the student union. So I made my way back out where the old bookstore is. About a minute later, we heard about 8 to 10 gunshots.
And then you mentioned that you saw someone that appeared to have been shot next to you? Or
yeah, so there was another gentleman that was running away, and looks like he was shot in the pelvic area, and he laid down and he got help and assistance from the police.
Oh, students told us that they were terrified, of course. They had no idea where the shooter or shooters were.
I mean, when I saw everyone flooding up the stairs, I kind of thought that the shooter was in the library. I mean, nobody told me where it was. They said Landis or whatever, and I was just in utter disbelief. I was you never think that it's gonna be you and your campus, but you really never know.
In a statement from the Tallahassee Police Department, it says multiple law enforcement agencies are actively working to secure the Florida State University campus. The student reunification point is being established at the Donald L. Tucker Civic Center. And again, as we told you, the threat is neutralized. Certain parts of the campus are blocked to students and faculty or anyone coming there, as is an active crime scene, but they are referring people to the Donald Tucker Civic Center. New video now shows students reuniting and hugging each other after they had to shelter in place. And you can see them hugging there, and just very emotional moment on that campus.
An absolutely awful day for so many reasons, but especially for those students who were there and had to live through that, or were injured, especially as part of that.
And for families impacted by this, former Jacksonville Mayor Lenny Curry has a son who attends Florida State.
He told us over the phone that his son Boyd is safe, thank goodness, but he's still in shock.
The first message my son sent me back was, he said, "It's crazy right now. Active shooter on campus. Shots are flying everywhere. Nightmare, not knowing what's happening, having a student on campus." One thing, we've seen this stuff play out on the news and television over the years. It's when it's somewhat close to you. And when I say close to me, I simply have a kid there that is safe, but it got really real really fast.
We also just got a statement from JSO on this shooting. Sheriff T.K. Waters said, quote, "Although we are not in the same city, the Jacksonville community is deeply connected to Florida State University. The men and women of JSO stand with the FSU shooting victims, students, teachers, administrators, and loved ones. This incident of senseless violence, a tragedy for all Floridians, cries out for justice. As our law enforcement colleagues conduct their investigation, our agency stands ready to support and assist."
And we've been hearing from students at local college campuses responding to the mass shooting at FSU. Action News Jax' Finn Carlin continues our team coverage over at UNF. And Finn, multiple students you talk to say that they know people, they have friends who go to FSU.
Yeah, it's Nico. We got here right after 3 o'clock, and I immediately got out of the car, started speaking with students walking around the campus, some of which had just heard this news right before I started talking to them. One of the students that I talked to, though, didn't know this happened at all until I had started talking with him about it. And then I watched his eyes go wide and his jaw go wide open as he remembered that he has a few high school friends that go to FSU.
That's something like shouldn't happen, and then like especially because I do have friends over there, and I hopefully they weren't like injured, and it's just like pretty scary because like you never know what could happen or like where it could happen.
Yeah, you're looking at some of the video now of police responding to FSU's campus earlier. Other students that I spoke with at UNF who did not want to go on camera also told me they heard about the news from their friends at FSU. They told me thankfully they're all okay, but of course very shaken up by what happened for obvious reasons. There was another student I spoke with here at UNF who has a girlfriend that goes to FSU, and he had heard about the news in class.
Oh, text my girlfriend, Michaela. Yeah, I texted her instantly, texted mom and dad. And she responded pretty quick, and she let me know that she was okay, so that was a sigh of relief.
Yeah, in the last hour, the University of North Florida shared on social media that its thoughts are with with Florida State University right now, as it is going through just a completely terrible, awful day for both the university and the students and staff at the university. For local coverage you can count on live at UNF, Finn Carlin, Action News Jax.
The impacts of this far-reaching. The University of North Florida did put out a statement. President Moaz Lamayam wrote, "Our hearts go out to Florida State University community as they navigate the tragic events at their student union today. Many of us have family, friends, and colleagues who attend or work at FSU, and I urge you to offer your support and check on them during this difficult time. I reached out to FSU President McCullough to assure him that we are here to help the FSU community in any way that we can." Now, we also confirmed that Tallahassee police were scheduled to be doing some tactical training elsewhere in the city. We mapped it out about 10 minutes drive away from campus. Police said that it would include loud noises and police with guns. So we don't know if the confusion played a role in any of this, as far as people seeing that response or maybe hearing those gunshots. President Donald Trump spoke briefly on the shooting during a meeting with the Italian Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, everybody. And I've been briefed on the Florida State University, Tallahassee active shooting. I guess it's an active shooter. Fully briefed as to where we are right now. It's a shame. It's a horrible thing. Horrible that things like this take place. And we'll have more to say about it later.
Now, this comes a little over 10 years after 3 people were shot at Florida State University in front of the Stozier Library. Police say Myron Deshawn May, a 31-year-old attorney and FSU graduate, opened fire and shot 3 people, including 2 students. This happened in 2014.
And of course, this brings up the memory of the 17 killed in the Parkland school shooting in Florida. A freshman who survived Parkland would most likely be a college senior right now. We know that some of those Parkland students attend FSU.
And certainly plenty of high schoolers who would have seen it on TV are there and going through school right now. Today's mass shooting comes on the heels of a number of high-profile shootings in Florida. We tracked significant mass shootings over the last 10 years from 2015 up until now.
Yeah, Action News Jack Yona Gavino is live with us in the studio. And Yona, you reviewed some of the notable mass shootings in recent years, but there's certain ones that really stick out.
Tanika, there are a number of these tragedies that you just simply cannot forget. And that's because of the magnitude, the motive, and even the young ages of the victims who, for some, were just students in high school. Florida has had a number of high-profile mass shootings in recent years. In August of 2023, 3 black people were killed in a racially motivated shooting at a Dollar General in Jacksonville. Action News Jax covered it extensively. In this case, a white male shooter took his own life. The FBI classified this incident as a hate crime. In May of 2021, nearly 24 people were injured and 3 people were killed when gunmen opened fire outside a hip-hop concert in Miami-Dade County. The attack was reportedly gang-related. In December 2019, a Saudi aviation student killed 3 U.S. Navy personnel in a terrorist attack at Naval Air Station Pensacola. The FBI classified this as an act of terrorism. And in August 2018, there was a mass shooting at Jacksonville Landing. A lone gunman opened fire during a video game tournament inside the landing. 2 men were killed and several people were hurt before the shooter took his own life. In Fort Lauderdale, in January 2017, a gunman opened fire in an airport terminal, killing 5 and injuring 6 others. And then there are 2 of the most high-profile shootings in Florida in recent memory. The Orlando Pulse nightclub shooting in June of 2016 and the mass shooting February 2018 at Parkland Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. A gunman killed 49 people at the Pulse nightclub, a gay nightclub in Orlando. At the time, it marked the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history. 2018's Parkland Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School's mass shooting left 17 people dead and several others wounded. The high school mass shooting sparked nationwide discussions on gun control and school safety. Now, it is just too early to know the motive and all the details of today's mass shooting in Tallahassee, but you can imagine this really hits home, especially for Northeast Florida, who has seen its fair share of tragedies in recent years. Emily and Tanika?
All right, thank you, Yona. There are a lot of developments still happening at FSU. We're working to get you all the details.
Yeah, as you can imagine, it's all going to unfold over the next several hours and days even. Let's take you back out live to the scene as we wait for that police briefing. You can imagine what the scene is like in that room. We will take you back there for a live report and more reaction in just the next 3 minutes.
We continue to stay on top of a mass shooting at Florida State University. We know at least 6 people are hurt, and it happened near the student union as we take a live look there at the campus. We are standing by for a police update that is set to happen at 4:30, and we will bring that to you live when it happens as we take a look inside of that room.
All right, we're going to shift gears and talk about a little weather here over the next couple of days, and it's certainly a very nice weather pattern. The cool nights, we've had mild days. We are in for a warming trend over the next few days. Clear skies now in our downtown sky cam. This is Jacksonville right now. You can see the clear skies, sunshine glistening off of our buildings here this afternoon. And the temperatures cooler at the beaches, what you'd expect this time of year. Low to mid 70s, Mayport to Neptune Beach and Jacks Beach. A little bit of a wind coming in off that cooler Atlantic. While you get inland, the temperatures steadily increase. Mid to upper 70s for the East Beltway at 295, and near or a bit either way of about 80 degrees, the I-95 corridor and much of western Duval County. And we take a look at our First Alert Neighborhood Weather Station network powered by Tempest, and we can see all these temperatures that are not too far from 80 degrees for the most part. The St. Johns River not having a big impact this afternoon, but you get closer to the coast, certainly you're seeing it here. Coastal Oaks is at 77. Neptune by the Sea is at 74 degrees right now. You go a little bit more inland and you get a little bit warmer. Spoonbill Street now at 74, but then you get to near Highview Drive, we're at about 75 degrees, and you get to White Horse Road, you're up to 80 degrees. So inland making a big difference right now. Through much of northern Duval and the northern and eastern portions of Clay County here, temperatures a little bit either way of about 80 degrees for the most part, and western Duval County between about 80 and 85 right now, while northern Duval County between 77 and about 82 degrees. You can learn more about our First Alert Neighborhood Weather Station network. Go to actionnewsjax.com and click on weather. No rain on 5 Sweep First Alert Doppler HD, and this is going to become more and more of a concern. We're now working toward a week since we've had significant rainfall. We're nearing the peak of our wildfire season, and dry conditions becoming more and more problematic now as we go through the next few days and beyond, as you'll see in the First Alert 7-day forecast. Dog walk through this evening. Forecast calls for mild temperatures to continue, gradually dropping through the 70s into the upper 60s by 9 p.m. in what'll be a pretty cool night tonight overall, although not quite as chilly as the past few nights. Mostly in the 50s across northeast Florida. That includes Duval County. Milder at the coast because you have that wind coming off milder water, so warmer at night but cooler during the day. Southeastern Georgia likewise will be dropping down into the 50s from Waycross to Blackshear, Brunswick, Woodbine, Kingsland, and areas in between. A little bit milder when you get a little bit closer to the coast. I'll tell you what, this is a nice 3-day weekend ahead. If you have tomorrow off right on through Saturday and Easter Day, temperatures will be warming into the 80s. So it will be warm, but the humidity won't be terribly bad. So the feel-like temperature is about the same as the air temperature, but plenty of sunshine and a lot of warm temperatures right through your weekend. Always in view in the First Alert 7-day forecast. Gradually, your nighttime lows come up because the humidity will go up a little bit too. So increasingly uncomfortable as we go through next week. And while there's the chance for an isolated shower Wednesday and Thursday of next week, I don't see any significant widespread rain anytime soon. All of the latest First Alert weather is at actionnewsjax.com, and you can download for free the First Alert weather app.
All right, thank you, Mike. And of course, we're working to learn so much more. We're standing by for a briefing, but we're just trying to make sense of some of that chaos and trying to compile information in this situation. So joining us is Lieutenant Scott Ramage with JSO, and he joined us today because he has a lot of perspective about these situations because a large part of your time has been training for active shooter situations. Tell us a little bit about your background before we kind of dive into dissecting what happened at FSU.
Correct. I've been fortunate enough to be on the Sheriff's Office for right at 21 years, and a lot of that time has been not only with the SWAT team, but also with our training academy, training in reference to active shooters, both our agency and members of our agency and members of the region as well.
And so you guys trained for this, and they were actually doing training. It just so happens right nearby, Tallahassee police were on this day. When the call comes out that there's an active shooter, walk us through the moments and what the response is from law enforcement, like the first thing you do, the priority, and kind of go from there.
Yes, so our first priority is really to respond to the scene as quickly as possible. Our officers are told that the first priority is to honestly stop the killing and stop the active threat. So they will respond as quickly as possible, deploying on the scene, whether it be an individual officer or a group of officers. From there, once the threat is then stopped, we work on stopping the dying. Is our next objective, applying medical aid to those individuals that have been injured in the incident, and then actually coordinating further on that with fire rescue and other emergency resources to not only provide aid there on scene, but actually get the individuals that have been injured out to the hospitals in coordination with that.
And we know obviously FSU is a large campus with tens of thousands of people. So talk about the response when you're dealing with that amount of people. And we know that there was a shelter in place ordered and they were going through trying to clear the campus. I mean, this started around 12:30 and they just noted that the campus was secure within the last, 30, 40 minutes. So when it's a situation or environment of that scale, how does that change the response?
Yeah, so any active shooter, it's going to be, it's a devastating incident for anyone that is involved in that. So we really want to control that incident as a whole, and any active shooter turns into a large-scale event. So we ask the individuals that are not involved in that to stay out of the area, individuals that are in the area to clearly identify themselves as victims, clearing out of the area upon the initial response of law enforcement officers. If individuals are leaving the area, to clearly keep their hands up and keep on moving past the area. That way responding officers can clearly identify what a potential threat might be.
Well, and that was the question I was going to ask you. You go in blind. You don't know how many shooters there are. You don't know who the shooter is. And I mean, we still don't have that information. We'll hopefully find it out at 4:30. But when you go into a situation that may have 1, 2, 3 shooters, how do you identify the threat? How do you prepare for something you really almost can't prepare for?
Well, through training and through the intelligence that's coming in at the scene. So and we look at previous active shooters and events across the nation to determine what our best response can be on that. So really looking at the intelligence that we have coming in from individuals that are on scene and responding to the stimulus that we have there on scene is the best option for officers to respond. And then eventually locking down and controlling those scenes after we've accomplished our objectives.
And we want to note we are standing by for a 4:30 briefing from Tallahassee, but so they've secured the campus, they've neutralized the threat, and they're telling people stay away from the student union in these particular buildings. It's closed. They're telling people don't come back to try to retrieve personal belongings. What happens now as they move into this investigative phase?
Yeah, so it will be, and I'm not sure of this specific situation, but it will be a long investigation. Not only do they then have to lock that area down, then they have to clear that area, making sure there are no additional threats in that area, making sure there are no additional victims that went and tried to hide in those areas for their safety, try to then evac them to medical resources if there are. But then the investigative phase takes over. And obviously for the victims that have been involved in it, how devastating that is, they want to make sure that they do the proper investigation in reference to that.
What would you say the biggest difference is in responding to shootings like this as opposed to something, that may have 1 or 2 people involved? I mean, I know there's mass numbers, but the way you respond is just so different.
Yeah, so anytime, it's unfortunate that anytime that there's a shooting involving anybody, but it's really the totality of the circumstances, the phrase that we use, and what that circumstance is, with the location of where that shooting is, and really dictates our response and how we as officers respond to that incident.
I know that there on the campus, they had a class training people for active shooter situations, including the run, hide, fight. We were hearing from students, some of them who did barricade themselves, who did hide. Some of them ran to their cars because they thought that was the best thing to do. How important is having that training? Because we know FSU had a shooting as well back in 2014 and improved some different things and updated protocol, but how important is that training, even like the training that was happening there today?
Yeah, so it's very important. It's important that individuals, both on the corporate level as well as individuals with their families, tell people to have a plan in place, whether it be the FBI puts out a run, hide, fight, or alert, which is a national training for active shooters for law enforcement, puts out avoid, deny, defend, but to have that plan in place, basically to make sure that if they can be out of the area, whether it's running away from the area, avoid the area altogether, that is critical. From there, if they can't avoid that area or run away, that they deny access, they barricade doors, they lock doors, and then finally, if it comes down to it where a shooter is coming into the room that they are in, that they do everything they can to fight that individual to make sure he can be stopped.
Well, and I'll read you the press release that Tallahassee Police put out yesterday. They were doing tactical apprehension and control team or their tactical apprehension and control team were conducting training exercises nearby, and they said, you know, you may hear loud bangs, crashes, sirens, and see officers with firearms. What is that training, and how? I mean, I imagine it's really lucky they were right there.
I'm not sure what their specific training was in reference to that. I know that tactical teams across the nation conduct training all the time in order to prepare for incidents like this. So I can't speak on their specific training, but I know that both SWAT teams across the nation, as well as police departments, not only our specialty teams, but also police as a whole have trained this for years and years. So the Sheriff's Office has trained really since the Columbine incident for incidents like this, and we've been training for over a decade in terms on a regional aspect, even with our fire rescue department, for incidents such as these.
I want to ask you about, we've been talking a lot about just the emotional toll that this takes. So you have the healthcare workers who receive some of these victims. You have the law enforcement who go into these scenes. Is that a part of those conversations when you're looking at responding to threats like this, the emotional and mental health aspect of it for you all and for all the first responders?
The aftermath, definitely. They try to take care of both the first responders and people that are on scene. And in reference to providing aid for them, chaplains, counselors, people that can talk to individuals once the initial scene is under control.
As you guys, and what we've seen with this today is information comes in real time, and maybe it's right, maybe it's not. There's so much going on in such a short amount of time, in such a high stress environment. How do you guys keep it straight to figure out, oh, this is where we need to go, or this is the shooter, and not just end up like running in various different directions?
So it is responsible, and we conduct training in reference to managing an active shooter, but that is a critical component of it, and that we have to make sure that we are controlling which officers are going where, what areas have been cleared and locked down, and what victims. And we've worked closely, and I think the Sheriff's Office has done a very good job on that, working closely with our fire rescue department and really combining on those resources to, if there are incidents like those that happen here in Jacksonville, that we can efficiently take care of that incident.
Okay, Lieutenant Scott Ramage, we appreciate you for standing by. We are going to go to break, and when we come back, we're expecting to hear from officials there in Tallahassee. We hope that you will stay with us as we break down what the information that we get, maybe offer us some perspective. We appreciate you, and we will be back in just a moment.
main campus in Tallahassee are canceled through Friday, April 18th. Essential employees should check with their supervisors for further reporting instructions. All FSU athletic events in Tallahassee are canceled through Sunday. At approximately 11:50 a.m. Thursday, April 17th, a gunman opened fire on the main campus of Florida State University in Tallahassee, shooting multiple individuals in the vicinity of the Student Union building. FSU police responded immediately, engaged, neutralized, and apprehended the shooter. 2 victims of deceased are deceased, and 5 individuals have been transported to a local hospital with gunshot wounds. The shooter has also been transported to a local hospital. The 2 deceased are not students. The shooter is believed to be a current FSU student. I do not have additional information on the shooter's identity at this time. Students who need assistance can go to the Donald L. Tucker Center, where the university is providing counseling, health care, and other support services. Family members are also able to go to the Tucker Center for assistance. Students, faculty, and staff are asked to call their loved ones as soon as possible to update them on their status. The student union and the surrounding area is still considered an active crime scene. Individuals should avoid the area. Students should not return to the student union to retrieve personal property at this time. Students may return to their residence halls, but they should otherwise stay indoors on main campus to allow first responders and university staff to do their jobs and respond to those needing assistance. Students may depart campus for the weekend. All classes have been canceled through Friday. Before I turn this over to Chief Revel, I want to thank all the brave men and women of the FSU PD for responding immediately to the scene. I also want to thank the responding agencies who have provided assistance to FSU today big time, including the Tallahassee Police Department, the Leon County Sheriff's Office, the Florida Highway Patrol, Leon County Emergency Medical Services, FDLE, and all other responding agencies today. We really appreciate your support. That's all the information I have at this time. We'll have additional update for you later today. Chief Revel.
Good afternoon. I am Chief Revel with the Tallahassee Police Department. As the shooting occurred today, our officers, as well as every single other officer in this city and county, responded immediately to this scene. Once on scene and once we began working through what was occurring and what we were working in consultation with FSU, Tallahassee Police Department was asked to take lead on this. So we will be the lead for this investigation in both the officer involved shooting portion of this as well as the homicide portion of this. I will come up after the last speaker and entertain just a few questions, but needless to say, we have multiple crime scenes. This is a very large area we're covering. We have thousands, hundreds or thousands of witnesses. And again, this is an active, ongoing investigation. So the information that we will be allowed to release right now may be fairly limited. I'll answer what I can at that time. But I will assure you that as soon as we can, any information that becomes available, we will make that available to you. One of the things in the process, and again, understand that this is an ongoing active investigation. So things are happening as we are standing here and as we are speaking. We have identified the shooter, obviously. He's at the hospital. So with more on that, I'm going to allow the sheriff to come up and speak on that portion of it.
Thank you, Chief. As Chief Revel indicated, I'm Walt McNeil, Leon County Sheriff. First and foremost, let me express our gratitude to the responding law enforcement agencies in this community. Our citizens should feel some degree of comfort knowing that your law enforcement agencies are going to respond and do exactly what we did in this case, that is bring the offender to justice and to make sure that we do what we can to make sure we lock him or her up. Let me say to you, this is obviously a heinous crime. Our deepest condolences go out to the FSU family. the families of the students who are here, and we understand that you all have been devastated because of this person's actions. The question as it relates to who is the shooter is 20-year-old Phoenix Eichner, and he's the son of a Leon County Sheriff deputy. Our Deputy Eichner, has been with the Leon County Sheriff's Office for over 18 years. She has a tremendous job that she's done. Her service to this community has been exceptional. Unfortunately, her son had access to one of her weapons, and that was one of the weapons that was found at the scene. And we are continuing that investigation into how that weapon was used and what other weapons perhaps he may have had access to. The alleged shooter was also a long-standing member of the Leon County Sheriff's Office Citizen Advisory or Youth Advisory Council. So he has been steeped in the Leon County Sheriff's Office family, engaged in a number of training programs that we have. So it's not a surprise to us that he had access to weapons. This event is tragic in more ways than you people in the audience could ever fathom from a law enforcement perspective. But I will tell you this, we will make sure that we do everything we can to prosecute and make sure that we send a message to folks that this will never be tolerated here in Leon County, and I dare say across this state and across this nation. Thank you. Let me bring up the FBI Assistant Special Agent in charge, Hubert Reynolds.
Good afternoon. My name is Hubert Reynolds, and I'm the Acting Special Agent in charge of the Jacksonville Field Office. I want to echo those standing with me what a horrific crime this is, and we stand with you fully. We have an office here in Tallahassee, and we are fully engaged with providing any resources that we can bring to bear to help with this investigation moving forward. We've established a digital tips media line where you can upload photos, videos prior to and during the incident. If you were there from social media, please upload all of that. I will give you now the website address. You can upload any tips to www.fbi.gov/FSU shooting. Again, that's www.fbi.gov/FSU shooting. I want to assure you that we are going to bring every available resource to be able to help the community and the local people here. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Richard McCullough, Rick McCullough, President of Florida State University. This is a tragic day for Florida State University. We were absolutely heartbroken by the violence that occurred on our campus earlier today. 2 have died. 5 other innocents are being treated for their injuries. We're working to support the victims, their families, and everyone affected by this traumatic event. I just returned from the hospital. The First Lady and I met some of our students who were the victims. Our hearts go out to our students and the victims of this terrible tragedy. I have to say that our law enforcement, our FSU police officers, are absolute heroes in this regard. The call went out, someone called it in, and immediately they responded to the scene and immediately neutralized the suspect and prevented this from being a bigger tragedy. I want to thank them so much for what they do to try to keep our students safe. I want to thank all the law enforcement partners, FSU Police, Tallahassee Police, Leon County Sheriff's Department, Florida Highway Patrol, and Florida Department Law Enforcement, and all other responding agencies for their rapid and courageous response. I want to thank everybody that came out to visit with the students and help us. and to be here today for this press conference, and I appreciate so much the support that you're all providing to our university and to our students. We're fully cooperating with the investigation, and we defer to law enforcement as they continue their work. I'd also like to thank all the healthcare providers at Tallahassee Memorial Hospital. They're treating and providing outstanding care to our victims. Right now, our top priority is safety and well-being for all the people and our campus. As it was said, classes are canceled on the main campus today and tomorrow, and all FSU athletics events on Tallahassee are canceled through Sunday. We also want to tell you that counseling and psychological services are available to students, faculty, and staff, and anyone that needs that should call 850-644-2003. We're also providing support for faculty and staff through our Employment Assistance Program. And so if you need any help, please reach out. We'll continue to communicate with the campus community as we know more. This is a deeply emotional time, but we're all here to support each other. We're going to do everything we can to support our community. We're a strong and united community. We're family. And so we'll take care of all of you. And we'll get through this together. Thank you.
All right, at this time we will take a few questions. Let me just reiterate, this was a massive response, a massive response of law enforcement personnel. Our federal, state, local partners have continued to build relationships that long preceded this event. And that came into great play today in the seamless way that we all came together to work these events. But I know you'll have some specific questions. I will tell you right now, we are not going to talk about the victims other than the fact that there are 6 of them, two additional deceased, and then the suspect. So 9 total persons. 9 total persons. Yes, sir.
Have you all been able to talk to the suspect at all? Any idea about motive?
The suspect invoked his rights not to speak to us.
Chief, do we know if the weapon that was used was his parents' service weapon? And if so, what are the rules around storing service weapons?
Right. No, that's a good question. This weapon was a weapon that the deputy previously used. A lot of times, many agencies, mine included, when we transition to a new handgun, the officers are allowed to purchase the handgun they used prior. And correct me if I'm wrong, Sheriff, but I believe that's the case here. This was a handgun that deputy used prior to them transitioning to a new handgun, and so it was her personal handgun.
Is she put on leave or?
The sheriff would have to speak to that.
We will do a thorough investigation to look at all aspects of it. There's no cause right now that we're aware of that require her to be placed on any kind of suspension or otherwise.
Yes, ma'am.
We've been hearing stuff that it was a deputy who was a school resource officer. Is that true?
That is correct.
Chief, those injured, those killed, are any of those members of law enforcement?
I'm sorry?
Anyone who died in the shooting or was injured in the shooting, were any of them members of law enforcement, whether it be the
No, they were not. They were not. Yes, sir.
When law enforcement arrived, did the suspects engage with them, or did he surrender immediately?
No, they challenged him and ended up shooting. He did not comply with commands and was shot.
Did he fire at officers?
I do not believe he fired at officers.
We've heard that Phoenix may be autistic. Are you able to confirm that detail?
I do not have that detail.
Is there an ID of the victims yet?
I'm sorry?
An ID of the victims?
We're not releasing any of the victim information at this time.
Was the officer aware of any behavioral conditions or concerns or threats prior to this incident?
We were not.
How quickly did officers arrive on scene from the 911 call to when they engaged the suspect?
We will get you that information. I don't have that currently. I assume that would be a question that was asked, but I mean, it was almost immediately. That FSU, obviously this is their campus and they patrol it very well. So they were on scene almost immediately, engaged almost immediately. And then everyone else, again, was a massive, very quick response.
I know that you said that the two deceased were not students. Do we know of those 5 that were injured or any of them students?
Again, we're not releasing any information on the students on the victims at this point.
Specifically, what firearm did he use?
I'm sorry?
What kind of firearm was he using?
It was a handgun.
What kind of handgun?
I don't know what type of handgun that was. It was probably a 40. I don't know. Yeah.
Chief, I heard a report that a shotgun was also recovered on campus. Was that used in the shooting?
We do know that he had a shotgun with him. We have not confirmed anyone was shot with a shotgun at this point. But again, that could change again, there are hundreds and hundreds of witnesses, and as we piece all of this back together, information will come to light that we may not have at this point. So I do not believe so at this point.
We'll take one more question.
Do we know how many shots in total?
Radio dispatch or any logs be released in the near future?
I'm sorry, say again.
Will there be any body cam footage or radio dispatch logs or incident reports being released anytime soon?
We will work with the state attorney's office, which we always do, in pulling together all the information, all the investigative evidence from this case, and then collaboration with State Attorney Campbell, we will make that determination. Obviously, after the case is over, we will certainly, it all becomes available at that point. But as to what we can and will release at that point, like I said before, we're very open, transparent on these things. Again, the officers did an incredible job. But again, some of this is very